All right, everybody, welcome. It's Tuesday evening, it's debate night, and we've got a show for you. My name is Mike Pace, happy to be here with you on this beautiful, and cool and brisk Tuesday evening here in Arizona, and welcome everybody on Fox10Phoenix.com, especially everyone around the country that is watching today. And you know, there's this debate going on, but right now, you don't really have to worry about that. It's the undercard. Happy to be here with you. The main event starts 7 p.m. Mountain Time. Kinsey will be up by then, and you guys can maybe show the live tweets or whatever's going on. We got our very own Steve Kraft in Milwaukee, so lots to talk about, lots going on. But while we're at it, we're all talking about the GOP debate. Let's get into it. Let's show you the very latest coming out of Milwaukee from Fox National there, as hopefully this will play for you guys. Give it a second. All right. Nothing so far. Let me see if I can play it here now. No. All right. Give me 1 second, guys, as I know it's supposed to be playing out, but it's not right now. But look at this beautiful Arizona. Take a look at this.
The stage is set for tonight's Republican presidential debates here in Milwaukee, and for some candidates, it's make or break. The first debate kicks off at 7 p.m. Eastern on the Fox Business Network. 4 candidates going head-to-head in that one, including New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, who's not concerned about being bumped from the main stage.
I don't want this to be easy, and I never thought it would be. So I'm going to fight real hard, because I want to be president.
8 candidates are squaring off in the primetime debate starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, also on the Fox Business Network. Among them, Senator Marco Rubio, who's been fighting back criticism about mishandling his personal finances.
I think it's more of an effort, particularly from the left and some in the media, to distract from the central issue of this campaign, which is the finances of the American people.
Jobs, taxes, and the general health of the economy will be the focus of this evening's debate, with candidates like John Kasich trying to prove they're the best qualified to get the economy back on track.
No one on that stage has a plan to balance the budget. No one's ever done it who's on that stage, or any of the Democrats. And experience matters if we want to turn this country around.
Fox Business Network's Neil Cavuto says the debate's focus should be on the issues, not the moderators, after CNBC's hosts were widely panned for mixing it up too much with the candidates.
If we can elicit the debate and not make it about ourselves or any snide rejoinders, we'll go a long way to getting these questions answered.
And at tonight's primetime debate, all eyes will be on Donald Trump and Ben Carson as they continue to battle it out for frontrunner status. In Milwaukee, Joel Waldman, Fox News.
All right, that is your latest update from Fox National when it comes to this big debate happening right now. Is the undercard, as they like to call it, and then the main event happening at 7 p.m. Mountain Time, 9 p.m. Eastern for everybody else around the country. Happy to be here with you. You see some of our top stories that we're talking about, obviously the GOP debate, and then what I want to get into next. We're going to show you a video from New York City of fast food workers protesting. You know, everybody across the country really got together and are demanding $15 an hour for fast food workers. We'll get into that and see if it's even warranted. We'll talk about that. And then earlier today, the Oklahoma parade crash suspect was in court. You remember from a little bit ago, there was that homecoming parade, and that person just slammed right into several people, killing them. So we will get an update on that, see what's going on with that. Okay, and then the sexting punishment case, very different kind of story. We'll get into that, as well as we'll end it with Black Friday madness already. You've been seeing some ads already out there. They're previewing, like Best Buy and Target, even offering some Best Buy Black Friday deals right now. So yeah, we'll get into it. But let's first get into really the big talker. I know everybody's going to light up this chat room once we start talking about $15 an hour for fast food workers. Let's show you the video that was happening earlier today. This is New York City as workers demanding $15 an hour for fast food workers.
Yes, it would help it a little more, and maybe I wouldn't have to work 2 jobs, and maybe I wouldn't have to work 7 days a week, or even sometimes we work on holidays just to make a little holiday pay extra. So, yes, it would make it a lot better.
All right, let's talk about this, because here is my issue with all of this. The people that accepted the job, when they did, they were told, this is how much you're going to get paid an hour. They obviously accepted because they took the job. And now everyone seems to be backpedaling. And a lot of these people that I've been hearing about all day today saying, well, we can't live on this and it's hard to make a living. But really, when you think about it, isn't fast food just more for a person like high school or college or, as a maybe even a second job? But really, you can't really depend on it unless you're in the top, managers or part of like a management system. I don't understand where they think they should deserve more because this is their main job. Well, no one told you that it should be your main job. You're the one that set out for that. So let me know what you guys think about this. Let's talk about it for a little bit, because this is like, it's so weird, It's like any other industry, you couldn't just start saying, oh, we need more now. We need more an hour. Fanny says, I am an HVAC tech, but I can learn how to flip burgers in 4 minutes as opposed to going to school to get FEL letters after my name. Federal letters? Is that what it is? I don't know about that. But let's talk about it a little bit here, guys. $15 an hour, is it worth it? D says, right on, Mikey. See, fast food working, it's great for high school or home for college for the summer. Earn a little extra dollars for yourself for disposable income. Or maybe you have a job, you have a decent job, but you take a fast food worker for a second job just to have a little disposable income. That's fine. But these people that are trying to make it seem like, well, this is my career. Come on, do you really see yourself doing this until you're about 65 years old? Come on, get real here, folks. Get real. $15 an hour to do that? I don't see it. I don't see where you can justify it. Maybe it's just me. But I don't think it justifies $15 an hour. If you're a chef at a regular restaurant, maybe, yeah, you're doing more. You're making a menu, but here everything's given to you. You gotta just go by the rules, and they want $15 an hour. Patio says, Mike, you're right on. These jobs are for the younger, new to the job market. Yes, that's what it's for. You come in, it's first job. Let's have some experience. Let's get to know how it is, what it takes to get good at a job. It's great for summer jobs. It's great for college kids coming home for a little bit. It's great for high school kids, 16, get some gas in the car, take out a date to homecoming, But the people that are now trying to make, well, I can't pay my rent on this. Well, see, it was never designed for you to pay your rent on it and make a career off of it. It just boggles my mind. I mean, it just seems like now people want to complain about anything now. And everybody feels like they're a victim. Well, if you really want a $15 an hour job, there's a lot of $15 an hour jobs. Why don't you try to get one of those? Why don't you try to set out and get it that way so you don't have to protest and do all this kind of stuff? Patio says, my first job was pumping gas. Now I own a business. See? Beautiful. That is a beautiful example right there. And No Proof says, would you rather employ 3 people $5 or one person at 15? Yeah. I mean, what I would do if some of my employees were protesting like this, I would just say, okay, guys, you're done. We're going to find people that want to work the $9, $10, whatever, $8 an hour it is. Because some people, this is sad. This is sad too. Some people are really looking for work. They would take that $8, $9 an hour job. And these people have the job. They don't even like it. And now they're complaining they want more. Think about it, folks. It doesn't make no sense. I'm not trying to bash on anybody, but I'm just trying to speak facts right now. It's Tuesday evening. It's time to start speaking facts. Hope no one's too upset right over there. I just had to get that out for a little bit, right? We had to have this talk because I saw it so much in the news today, and I just said I had to think about it, and I'm like, why is this going on like this? Sometimes you gotta, Sometimes you gotta, yeah. D says, excellent, Mike. You tell him. Boom. There we go. Point taken. We got it now, guys. Tess is listening to the debate, which we love. We got that second screen experience right here. We're doing a little bit of everything. Yeah, Tess, we knew those moderators were going to do a little bit better than CNBC. Look who they're following. You would really have to mess up to go lower than CNBC, wouldn't you think? This is probably the best time to be a moderator, because if you're just normal and play by the books right now and just ask fair questions, you're going to look like $1 million out there. This is the perfect spot for them. Pressure's off for them. CNBC already nosedived that one. Love it. Gary says, if they're forced to pay $15 an hour, all will happen is the dollar menu will disappear. You're right about that. It probably will be. All your favorite food, no more dollar, probably be the $4 menu, the $3 menu. So yeah, good looking out there. Yeah, you really gotta think like that sometimes. All right, we'll move on, everybody. That was a good little breakdown. We'll come back to it if we have some time there, but I appreciate just trying to get out there and break it down a little. All right, let's talk about the Oklahoma parade crash suspect. She was in court. Here we go.
For the first time, we see Adacia Chambers appear physically before a judge. While our cameras were not allowed inside, we saw her appear in bright orange, calm, even waving and smiling to her family. Only speaking once, a soft tone in her voice. Since the crash on October 20th, we've learned new details about Chambers, but that will now come to an end. The judge issuing a gag order for all involved, including family members and victims. Before that was issued, Adacia's boyfriend spoke briefly with reporters.
It happened, even though it does still seem like a bad dream, but it happened, and
The Obama administration is requesting the Supreme Court rule on the president's executive action to protect as many as 5 million of those in the United States illegally from deportation.
I think you can tell from the tone of my comments today that we're quite disappointed in the decision that was rendered by the Fifth Circuit. But it does not in any way diminish the confidence that we have in the power of our legal argument. And we're looking forward to having an opportunity to making that argument again before the Supreme Court.
In a 2-1 decision, the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a Texas federal judge's injunction, blocking the president's immigration plan. Republicans say the president overstepped his authority in deciding to allow certain groups of immigrants, like undocumented parents of U.S. citizens, to remain in the U.S.
The president does not have the unilateral authority to grant amnesty to millions of people. And what this federal court of appeals said is the rule of law still applies even to the President of the United States of America.
In a statement, the Department of Justice says it is, quote, working to resolve the immigration litigation as quickly as possible in order to allow DHS to bring greater accountability to our immigration system by prioritizing the removal of the worst offenders, not people who have long ties to the United States and who are raising American children. And there's a timing issue here. With less than a year and a half to go in President Obama's term, the Supreme Court could hear arguments on this in the spring, perhaps rule by next summer, giving the administration, if it wins, only a few months to implement its immigration policy. At the White House, Rich Edson, Fox News.
Alrighty, guys. That was the latest update on the immigration. Now, I do want to show you guys this. It was a press conference earlier today. I'm sorry, I don't know too much about it. We didn't get too much info, so we're going to learn about it at the same time here. It was in Texas. It was a press conference with a police officer. Here we go.
On this planet to live on. I can speak to that because I wasn't born here, and I can tell you that there's no better place than the United States. So we consider this case an extremely high priority, as we do any time someone is attacked without excuse or justification. The person or persons that attacked Judge Kuceric discharged several rounds at her, into her car. Investigators absolutely believe that the assault was an attempt to murder her, an attempt on her life. We absolutely believe that she was targeted for that attack on Friday evening. Judge Kuceric was transported by Austin Travis County EMS to University of Breckenridge Medical Center at Breckenridge. And out of respect for her privacy and HIPAA law, we are not going to release any information on her condition other than to say that she's still with us. We're very hopeful that she'll recover. We're prayerful as a community for her and her family that she recover. She is a tough woman. She is a strong woman. She is a healthy person, and I'm very hopeful that she will recover. But we are not going to talk about her specific injuries and provide any other information on that, other than to tell you that we're hopeful that she will make a complete and a full recovery. Numerous witnesses have been identified and have been interviewed by investigators in this case. We're continuing to identify additional witnesses, and we believe that we've identified folks that probably have really good details as to the aspects of this case, important aspects of this case. We'll continue to work diligently to work with these witnesses to fill in some more of the blanks, and most importantly, to make sure that we gather the evidence that we need to ensure that we bring justice to Judge Kuceric and her family, and more importantly, bring closure to this community so they know that we are not going to tolerate this kind of behavior, this kind of cowardly act on the fabric of society, and that we will bring every resource to bear. Evidence has been collected from the scene and is currently being analyzed by our crime lab as expected, and we're very grateful. Numerous law enforcement agencies are assisting, including the FBI, the Travis County Sheriffs, the district attorneys here, the district attorney in Harris County, the Houston Police Department, and the Marshal Service. We believe that we've had some great cooperation and cooperative efforts between all these agencies, and we believe that together with all the organizations involved, especially with the hard men and women, working men and women of the Austin Police Department, we will bring closure to this case. And this, what is in essence a targeted attempted murder on our judge. A person of interest is in custody, as reported yesterday. That person is identified as Chami Onyeari. He is currently in custody in the city of Houston in Harris County. He was taken has been booked on an unrelated murder charge by the Houston Police Department. I want to just say to the Houston Police Department and the Federal Marshal Service up in Harris County, thank you, thank you, thank you for just being great partners. We always work together very closely, but I think that it has been seamless. One of the things in law enforcement, sometimes people worry more about the glory than getting the work done, and I think in this case, it has been a case where we're worried more and focusing on where we should focus, which is bringing justice to the victims of a crime. Out of respect for Houston PD's separate ongoing criminal investigation involving that murder, I will not be commenting, obviously, any further on their case. So for those of you that need information on that, you need to contact Houston PD. Investigators are currently working to determine if an affirmative link to actually establish an affirmative link to the assault on Judge Kucera can be established. We believe preliminarily that we will be able to put together a link between the individual and her work, but we're not going to comment further until the investigation is complete. At this time, we will not comment on any ongoing investigative efforts that are underway, except to say this: every possible avenue is being explored in an attempt to exclude the person that we have as a person of an interest, and in an attempt to make sure that we bring to justice everybody that was involved, everybody that was potentially part of this horrific crime, and more importantly, to make sure that they don't have an opportunity to do this to anybody else. To the media, we urge you, and we want to let you know that the premature release of information in this case has resulted in some bad information being put out. I'm not going to say what it was, but it's very important that we all focus. We're all part of the same community, that out of a rush to try to be the first ones to put information out, that we don't A, put out information that's erroneous, because that's already happened, or B, put out information that ultimately can keep a family from getting the justice they so richly deserve. If you think about the facts in this case, family members got to see an unarmed woman brutally attacked with gunfire, and I think that family deserves to make sure that we as a community, including the media, which we consider part of the community, that we act in a way and in a manner that focuses on what's most important, which is to bring justice to that family. Because the release of information, again, can be harmful. We are absolutely aware there's a lot of public interest in this community and communities around the state and nation on this case. What we can tell you is that we have put every one of our units that have any bearing on this to work on it, just like we do in all homicides. If you look at the Austin Police Department, our homicide clearance rate is one of the highest in the nation. We take great pride of that, and I think that as a result of that high clearance rate as it relates to murder and a lot of our violent crimes, that we're actually the second safest big city in the country as it relates to violent crime. Well, there's reason for that, and I think it's the good work of the men and women of the Austin Police Department. So other than to say that we have a lot of resources that we have brought to bear, that Judge Kucera is hanging in there and her family is hanging in there, that we do have a person of interest, that person of interest has been booked on an unrelated murder charge in Houston. The case is ongoing. We're not going to say much more, but I do want to open it up to any questions.
How will this play out from your jurisdiction in Harris County? Will he have to go all the way through the judicial system there before he's transferred back to Travis County? Or what happens?
Well, I can tell you that the murder charge, as of right now, is the highest charge, and but doesn't mean that this charge is going to go away if there's another charge with the gentleman's personal interest. You know, remember that he's only been charged with murder on an unrelated case in Harris County. We're not saying that he is the suspect. We're not saying that he's a trigger man. We're just saying that he's a person of interest, and I can tell you he's a person that we're highly interested in. But he will go through that process if he, in fact, is affirmatively linked to our case and we develop enough information to charge them, that case will take precedence. But this case does not go away.
Chief, have your detectives been able to talk to him?
I can tell you that our detectives, our homicide detectives, have been in Harris County in the city of Houston since probably about 10 o'clock last night. They have been doing everything they need to do, but I'm not going to say specifically who they've talked to or not, other than to say that they're working very closely with Houston PD up in Harris County in the city of Houston and with the Marshal Service, and things are going very smoothly.
Kind of a follow-up to Ryan's question. I think when there are competing jurisdictions like there are now in this case, two possible cases, one attempted murder, one murder, that the concern of the people of Boston might be, well, we're going to have to wait in line to see justice here.
Oh, yeah. Listen, we're not going to wait in line. We're going to continue to work our case just like we would any other case. Houston will continue to work their case in terms of the murder, and we're not interested and we're not going to be greedy in trying to hurt a murder case for an attempted murder case, right? There has to be a pecking order, and the pecking order is, number one, is the murder case that Houston is already very much believes they have a good case. Obviously, they've already charged the person, but that doesn't mean it's one or the other. We will work very closely with them. We will be strategic. The prosecutor's office in both cities will work very closely together, and both counties will work closely together, and I don't think it's an either-or proposition. We're a civil society, at least when it comes to law enforcement and the judicial system, and I'm sure we'll work it out very effectively.
Can you give us a sense of how you...
Hold on, right over here.
Are you suggesting that there may be other persons of interest and that there could possibly be a trigger man out there that is not this person?
I'm suggesting that we're not going to make any assumptions, that we're nowhere done, we're nowhere near being complete or ending our investigation. Our investigation is ongoing, it's fluid, and we're not going to make any assumptions. We're not going to rest on our laurels, because we don't just want a person that might have fired the weapon. If there's a person that drove the car, we want to bring them to justice. If there's a person that was part of a conspiracy, a person or persons, we want to make sure that our investigation is thorough enough to make that determination and ensure that everybody that played a role in attacking a mother, a wife, a daughter, a friend, a judge in this community, everybody that played a role in that prior to the attack, during the attack, and since the attack, anybody that's been harboring a person involved, anybody that has knowledge in harboring a person involved, we're going to hold them all accountable. And so we're going to continue with our investigation to ensure that everyone involved is brought to justice.
Can you give us a sense of how you were able to get a lead on him?
No. We're not going to give you a sense of how we did that. I think that we've learned a lot. One of the lessons that we've one of the most frustrating things for me as a member of law enforcement is that sometimes instead of worrying about results, we're worried how do we get there, and that really hurts us. It hurts us when, unfortunately, your job is to tell the story, and when the story talks about methods, criminals are dumb, but they're not stupid. They start learning about law enforcement methods, and guess what? They start adapting. They start changing the way they do things, and so we are not going to talk about how we've got to that point, but I can just tell you.
Can you then confirm whether or not you can place him in Austin on Friday night?
We're not going to confirm that either. You're good. Where are you from?
He knows.
Huh? Where are you from?
Little cable station.
A little cable.
All right.
Should community still be on guard? You spoke Saturday morning about that.
I can't hear you.
They spoke Saturday morning about being on guard, being extra mindful while this is still going on. It's kind of been that intention.
Let me tell you, when you're in this business, whether you're a police officer, a judge, or a prosecutor, and you look and you scan around society, you scan around the annals of your business, you're going to find enough instances where prosecutors, police officers, judges, people involved in the criminal justice system end up being targeted because they're part of that system. So when you're in this profession, my suggestion to all of us is that we all have to exercise due diligence. We have to have situational awareness. And this is not a criticism or a comment on our current case. It's just part of the nature of the business that we're in. And then you add on top of that the hateful speech that you see on blogs and on social media and everything relates to the mistrust and part of those cogs of government, and you're part of that cog, a cog in that system that some people in their mind think is repressive. You've got to be cautious. So it is a time for caution, not just in this instance, but it's a time for caution in our nation because of the, I think, heated um, conversation that we have. We've kind of lost the art of, as a people, of disagreeing without becoming disagreeable. We've lost the art of expressing dissatisfaction without becoming hateful and in some cases violent. So I think that in answer to your question, Jeff, that yeah, we need to be cautious.
In talking with the neighbors, a lot of them are asking, what is the victim's description of the suspect? What are they supposed to be on the lookout for?
We don't have what we want people to realize is that the best way to keep a neighborhood safe is to be a nosy neighbor. The best way to keep a neighborhood safe is to know your neighbors. The best way to keep a neighborhood safe is to be involved and engage with one another so you know what belongs in the neighborhood, what seems normal in a neighborhood, and when you don't see or when you see things that are unusual, suspicious, behavior that's suspicious, vehicles are suspicious, something that is out of the ordinary, you need to contact law enforcement. I can say that one of the things that we want the public here in Austin, if you know something, if you were in the neighborhood, if you saw something in the days leading up to the attack on Judge Krasurik, just let us know. Call the police department. Let us know. No tip and no incident. It may be too minor. Let us know. It may be something, maybe nothing, but the only way we'll know for sure is for us to take a look at it.
Is there any description that you can release?
No, we're not. We don't have a description to release at this time.
What can you tell us about a suspicious person's call that was made the day of the shooting?
I can tell you that we do have some reports of some suspicious person or persons in the neighborhood. That's part of our ongoing investigation, and we will continue to actually go down that lead to see where that leads us to. So.
All right, that's the latest from Texas, where a judge in Texas was shot. This was a murder plot that tried to assassinate a local judge there in Texas. They have one person of interest in custody, and the judge, they are hoping, makes a full recovery. Hi, everybody. My name is Mike Pace. Welcome to Fox10Phoenix.com, part of the Fox 10 News Now stream. What a day we have here as far as GOP debate. Yes, it's happening. The undercard is happening right now, and the big event, the main event, happening at 7 o'clock Arizona time, 9 o'clock on the East Coast, 8 o'clock Central time. So we enjoy and appreciate everybody being part of the chat room. It's going to be a great second screen experience for you. How cool is this? You get to watch the debate and then kind of watch it and talk about it on with your favorite FNN peeps here. It's like a second debate in the chat room. So there you go. That's why we know you guys are all signed up for it. We really, really appreciate when you guys keep coming back and making this a daily thing so you can get your news and updates, sports, traffic, weather, whatever. We have it for you on this beautiful and brisk Tuesday evening. Hope everyone's having a great day. Now I want to talk about, guys, part of my top 5 was this Black Friday, how it's already happening, it seems like. Isn't this something? These stores absolutely can't wait to get these deals out. Like, I just saw today, they were showing Best Buy had some deals where it was up to $125 off an iPad Air 2, $250 Best Buy gift card you get if you buy and activate any Samsung Galaxy S6, S6 Edge, or S6 Edge Plus smartphone, $150 off the new 27-inch iMac, or $150 off the new 12-inch MacBook. Now, for the actual Black Friday weekend, Best Buy is going to have 1,000 stores open by 5 p.m. local time on Thanksgiving Day. Now, let's talk about this, guys. Is this just ruining Thanksgiving? We have it's a shame that we have these talks now, these last couple years, when it's now been the norm to open up on Thanksgiving. Remember how it was? You would eat in the afternoon or early evening, and then you would just relax and be with friends and family and enjoy Thanksgiving. Maybe put on a football game, have the football game on while you guys are cooking and making food together. But now it's like they want you to eat, hurry up and eat, and then come to the store. Wait in line. This is part of your Thanksgiving experience. This is going to be part of your Thanksgiving experience now. If you get in these lines, you're just waiting there. And it's ruining the Thanksgiving holiday, I think. Because think about it. You got to hurry up and eat. Then you got to get in line. Then, the parking's going to be crazy. There's going to be people that aren't going to be nice. It's not going to be like everyone's going to be, oh, hey, happy Thanksgiving. Oh, you're going to let me get that iMac? Oh, thanks. Oh, you could have this iPhone. Yeah, it's going to be like total, pandemonium like you always see like on YouTube, like a couple days after or even hours after. You just see mad floods of people going through stuff. So I think it's going to really ruin Thanksgiving, and these stores are opening earlier and earlier. I need a water break on that one. I'm just ranting today, guys. This is Fox 10 News Now. Fox10Phoenix.com, part of the rant. Let me hear it, guys. Resolute saying you are the cherry on top, Mike. Love you. See? Thank you, guys. Thank you. Yeah, I never shop on Thanksgiving. Thank you for that comment. We appreciate all comments, but let us know. Do you shop? I think you'll get. Is the deals really that good? Are the deals really that good? That's my question too. I mean, what are you saving? $50, $60? But you're ruining your Thanksgiving. You're ditching out on friends and family so you could get that new device. And I bet a lot of times, I think, I would like to see this statistic, because I don't hear this statistic too much or see this statistic. The amount of people that shop on Thanksgiving Day, are there presents for them or for somebody else? Because I wouldn't mind if it's for someone else, but at the same time, it's ruining a lot of things. I don't know, guys. That's just my view on that one. I don't understand it sometimes, Oh well. But we'll talk about a little bit more of that as it comes closer to Black Friday and Thanksgiving. We're only a couple weeks away. Hard to imagine. This year has just flown by. 2015 almost on the way out. Can't believe it. 2016 almost here. What a year 2016 is going to be. Oh my gosh, you're talking right off the bat. We're going to get, if you think we're going hardcore on politics now, it's just going to be 2016 is just going to go like that. With all the elections and all that, it's going to be nuts. So you guys got the right idea being part of Fox 10 News Now. You guys got the right idea to be in here and just knowing what's up every day, every week. You guys just come in and come out to just support the movement that we're doing here, all digital, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. You got to love it. You got to love that service there that we offer you, and we love giving it to you guys. So there you go. All right, I gotta show you this clip now as we're talking about more and more politics. Hillary Clinton, New Hampshire, she was campaigning there. We'll show a little bit of that.
Close the online loophole, close what's now called the Charleston loophole, where the guy got a gun, which he never was entitled to because he actually had a felony conviction, but they didn't find out in time, and the rule is 3 days you get the gun, and he used it to murder those 9 people in church. And we need to reverse the immunity from liability that the Congress voted to give gun makers and gun sellers. And here's an example of why that's important. The man who went into the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, remember? He bought a huge amount of ammunition online from a seller called Lucky Gunner. He didn't have to pass a background check. Nobody could look him in the eye and say, wait a minute, there's something off about this guy, or maybe we don't want to do this, or you come back in a few days after we've checked you out. He just put in the order and he got it. And one of the families of a young woman who was murdered by him sued to say, how can you have no accountability at all, no legal responsibility whatsoever to sell weapons and ammunition online? And they brought a lawsuit, and because of the law that the Congress passed giving immunity, they lost. And then to add insult to injury and to grief, under a state law, they were told they had to pay the NRA $200,000 for the legal defense of the guy they sued. This is crazy, folks. I mean, there's nobody standing out there wanting to take your gun if you're a responsible American. But personally, I don't want fugitives, felons, stalkers, domestic abusers, terrorists being able to go buy guns without any background check and anybody standing in the way. So we have a lot of work to do in our country, and we also have challenges overseas. I went to 112 countries as your Secretary of State. I was always so proud to be representing our country in whatever place I was. And I know how important that we maintain American leadership and that we lead by our values and furtherance of our interests and to advance our security and that of our friends and our partners and our allies around the world. And when I hear the Republicans talk, they fall into two camps. There's the one camp, which is the answer to everything, more soldiers and bombs. And the other camp, we shouldn't get involved with anybody anywhere, just pull up the gangplank and retreat. There is no substitute for American leadership. There's not any group, any nation that will step in who shares our values if we retreat. Now, when I hear the Republicans talk like that, I'm also usually mentioned in the conversation. Honestly, sometimes I wonder what they would talk about if I weren't around. But, you know, they go on and on about, oh, what has she ever done and all that stuff. They go on and on. So I listened to this for a while, and then I thought, well, maybe they just don't know. So I sent them all a copy of my book, Hard Choices, about my 4 years in the State Department. And, you know, I thought if they were interested in how you pull together an international coalition, including China and Russia, to put crippling sanctions on Iran to drive them to the negotiating table, they could read about it. It's in there. Or if they wanted to maybe find out how you get a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas by negotiating with the Muslim Brotherhood president in Cairo, I wrote about that too. I also said, look, there's so many of you, you could have a book club, and you could read this and kind of discuss it among yourselves. And I haven't gotten one thank you note, but I'm still waiting. We're all kind of busy right now. Look, you know, today at the state capitol, when I signed my papers, and there was a big crowd in the corridor shaking my hand and clapping, and then I went outside and I talked to the crowd out there. A lot of people say to me, gosh, how do you do this? I mean, how can you keep doing this? And I'll tell you why. I mean, I feel so blessed that I'm an American. I'm the granddaughter of a factory worker from Scranton, Pennsylvania, who came here as a child immigrant and went to work in the lace mills. And he worked really hard. And he did it to support his family, of course, but he did it to give his 3 sons a better life. And he did. Each of them went to college. My dad graduated from college in the middle of the Depression and hopped a freight train from Scranton to Chicago because he heard there was a job he could get, and he became a salesman. And then when World War II started, he joined the Navy, and he trained sailors who were being sent off to fight in the Pacific. And when he died, I got letters from some of those sailors, including pictures of my dad standing there in his chief petty officer uniform with rows and rows of young men in their whites going off to defend our country. And my mother had a very different experience. You know, she was rejected, neglected, abandoned by her parents, sent to live with grandparents who didn't want her. And by the age of 14, she was out on her own working as a housemaid. So her family gave up on her, but America didn't.
At Voya, we can help you organize your...
She never got to go get that college degree, which she wanted so much. But she made sure I did. And I'm standing here before you 3 generations later from my grandfather, asking you to support me for president, because that's the story that I was raised to believe in, that I have lived, and that I want to make sure is real for Americans today. You know, we have this amazing 13-month-old grandchild now, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure she has every opportunity in life. But I have to tell you, that's not enough. It really matters what kind of country she becomes an adult in, what kind of world is out there waiting for her. And it also really matters that every other kid in our country has the same chance to live up to his or her God-given potential. And I got to tell you, you shouldn't have to be the granddaughter of a former president to be able to take advantage of the chances and blessings America has offered. You should be able to be the granddaughter of a factory worker or the grandson of a truck driver. And I'm going to do everything I can as your president to make sure that is real. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Well, thank you all. I'd love to take some questions, and obviously whatever is on your mind. I think do we have some microphones around? Do we have some microphones, or are you going to have to kind of be? Yes, we do have a microphone. This lady right there in the turquoise shirt. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Diana Chapman. I'm interested in your role as Commander-in-Chief. I'm the daughter of a Marine Corps officer who fought in Korea and Vietnam. I think you're going to be inheriting ISIS, and I'm wondering how you're going to prepare for that if you're thinking boots on the ground. In that case, what are you going to do when the first POW gets executed and it's streamed live to the world? If you could address that, I'd appreciate it.
As I said very briefly, we have a lot of opportunities in the world and we have a lot of threats and dangers. And ISIS is the first kind of internet terrorist network. They are very adept at recruiting, propagandizing, even training, and setting up attacks. So I think that it's imperative that we be constantly working with other nations who have a more immediate danger from ISIS, even though I believe the danger goes far beyond the Middle East. And we should be willing to recognize that. So here is where I think the United States is right now and what I support and what I would do in addition. Defense Secretary Carter said the other day that our new strategy is what he called the 3 R's: Raqqa, Ramadi, and raids. Raqqa is the city they operate out of in northern Syria. Ramadi is the Iraqi city that they captured, which is a center of northern central Iraq, a Sunni city. And raids is what the president has decided we're going to be doing more of by committing special ops forces. But there is no military solution to ISIS unless we get a better coordinated effort from an Iraqi army that will fight, from the Kurds who will be able to focus on ISIS and not be constantly having to fight rearguard actions against the Turks and others who are worried about their ability to establish some territorial holds. With the Russians now, with the latest information about their plane being perhaps bombed, having to decide, are they really most focused on Assad's enemies or on their own? Because ISIS did take credit, although it's not yet been totally concluded that's what happened. So we've got to do intensive diplomacy to get everybody on the same page. ISIS poses a very serious threat to the region, and because they are recruiting fighters from Europe, a few from the United States who have passports that are going to enable them to travel around, there has to be a much more focused and sustainable effort against them. And we have to do, as I think Ash Carter rightly said, everything we can to try to take out their support systems in Raqqa, their supply chains, their recruitment mechanisms, and we have to get the Iraqi army in shape, working with the Kurdish Peshmerga to take back Ramadi and the other cities that they have taken over. We also have to try to disrupt their financing. You know, they are quite adept at stealing oil and selling it on the black market. They are also looting antiquities, and the ones they're not destroying, they are, you know, taking and selling a lot of what was left in sites and museums. So we've got to disrupt their financing mechanism. And finally, we have to be very clear about what we will do and what we won't do. And I believe we are going to have to continue air support and surveillance and intelligence and reconnaissance and special operators. But I don't believe we should at all consider putting American troops into the area to fight ISIS. If we can't get others to do that work, then we will have to have Plan B, where we try to contain them. But I'm betting that if we and others push hard and try to rebuild the Iraqi army that the former Prime Minister Maliki basically destroyed, and if we are able to support the Kurds, who are good fighters and have some reach, and if we get the Turks to pay attention to ISIS more than they are paying attention to the Kurds for at least a period of time, and if we get Russia and Iran to understand that there has to be a political settlement because it's the continuing civil war that has created the opportunity for a cancer like ISIS to take root and grow, and maybe the Russians will be more receptive now. I have advocated a no-fly zone, and by that I mean one in coalition working with the nations in the area and others who are flying missions against ISIS and other terrorist groups. They're not the only terrorist group, but they're the most sophisticated and broadly based territorially. And I think that if we can get the Russians on board and the Iranians and the Turks on board, what a no-fly zone would do is give us a chance to have some safe territories that we then could protect from ISIS and maybe stop the flow of refugees, because that's a tragedy in and of itself. So this is a highly complicated set of challenges that are presented to us. And there is no substitute for constant diplomacy. And, you know, I believed that before I became Secretary of State, and I really came out believing it even more, that no matter how hard the problem is, you have to keep working at it, and you have to keep trying to bring people to the table to be part of whatever the solution might be. And it beats, you know, rushing into war. And even though, you know, I supported the Iran agreement, as I said, I did the sanctions and I started the secret negotiations through Oman. And I mean, I don't trust the Iranians. I mean, who would? But the idea that we would immediately jump to the conclusion that the only way to try to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapons was through military action, I thought was, you know, too quick and not particularly well-founded. And this had been going on for a while. You know, look, I mean, the Iranians mastered the nuclear fuel cycle when George W. Bush was president. They built covert facilities when he was president. They were dashing to install as many centrifuges. And so when President Obama came into office, asked me to be Secretary of State, we thought if we didn't kind of disrupt that move that they were on, that we would have ended up with, you know, a nuclear weapon arsenal in Iran. So it was very painstaking. There was no easy shortcut to it. And I feel exactly the same way about what's going on in the Middle East right now. We need constant diplomatic effort, and we need to have some leverage, which is one of the other reasons that I support, you know, floating the no-fly zone idea, because we need some leverage to get people at the table that will then cooperate with us to go after what the primary goal of ISIS eradication is. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. You stood up, but then I want to get to some of the other parts of the room, too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
This is more homegrown here. I just want you to know for a couple statements. First off, I've been with you since the cookie incident. I campaigned for you, and then it was a bitter pill, but I went with Obama after you didn't get it. As a student of history, I feel right now this country is as divided as since the Civil War. My question to you is, for the first time in all of the times I've listened to you, when you said the Republicans as your enemy, it was disheartening. I'm not asking you to retract it. What I'm asking you is, when you are president, would you please extend the olive branch and let us, because we're all Americans, Hillary.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was answering, I think they sometimes view me that way, and that, like the Iranians, et cetera. Now, when I was First Lady, when I was Senator, when I was Secretary of State, I always reached out to Republicans and worked closely with them. One of the things that, we did, after, as Amy said in her introduction, was the Children's Health Insurance Program after we were not successful getting affordable care passed in my husband's administration. I worked with Ted Kennedy and Orrin Hatch. We reformed the adoption and foster care system. I worked with Tom DeLay. I got to the Senate. I worked with Lindsey Graham to provide TRICARE medical benefits to people in the National Guard. I have done that. I will continue to do that. I know how to find common ground. I know how to stand my ground. And I think that is how we need to go at it. But I also think this election is particularly important for people to listen carefully to what candidates are saying. Because it's been my experience that people who run for office and get elected actually try to do what they tell you they intend to do. And I think it would be a grave mistake to go back to trickle-down economics, to go back to giving tax breaks to the wealthy, to get out of the way of corporations, to avoid the dangers and the opportunities presented by climate change and everything I talked about earlier. So it will be a contentious election. And what I have found in my 20-plus years of experience in this arena is that when I'm in office, I have great relations with Republicans. They say wonderful things about me. When I'm running for office, it's a little different. And I get that. I understand that. But you can rest assured, at the base of political action are relationships, just like anything else in life. I will do whatever I can to find that common ground. And I hope there will be a lot of common ground. We just saw common ground on the Export-Import Bank in the House of Representatives. And, I agreed with the Republicans who joined with Democrats. And they did it because the facts are pretty clear. Every other major country we compete with has some kind of system to support their exporters. And if we take that tool away, you're going to lose jobs in New Hampshire and you're going to lose jobs across America that we shouldn't be losing. We're in a competitive global economy. I cite that as just one example. So Republicans bucked their leadership because they looked at the evidence. And I'm hoping that with the new leadership in the House, there will be some opportunities to find even more common ground. At least that's what I'm counting on. Yeah, right there. Yes, yeah. Yeah, here, let me hold this for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hillary, I was a fan of yours 20 years ago when you tried to improve health care. And I was disappointed that it didn't work out. So you understand the dynamics of health care in our country better than any other candidate. We're still the only developed country without universal health care. And while Obamacare has improved coverage, people are still going without care. Bernie Sanders has been advocating for Medicare for all. And with the freedom to choose your own doctor and low administrative costs compared to insurance companies, it's always sounded like the best way to go. Do you support Medicare for all? And if so, how likely is it to be passed? And if not, why not?
Well, first of all, I support Medicare. And I support it because it has one of the lowest administrative costs of any insurance provider in America. And it is demonized and it is, attacked all the time when the facts are quite contrary. Given it covers older people and sicker people, especially toward the end of life, it actually does an excellent job of providing that care. But there are problems with trying to move to a Medicare for all system in our country because the majority of people in America get their health care through their employers, and maybe it's a choice we wouldn't have necessarily made, except during World War II. It was a job recruiter and sustainer. But in every bit of work I've done, every research study I've shown, people are not ready to give up their private health care. And it is a very hard sell to try to convince them to do so. I think what the Affordable Care Act did was to do the best job, given the different views that exist in our country, and created an exchange program that does use insurers, but so it's sort of familiar to people, but with subsidies so that it can be afforded. Now, I know that a lot of people say, well, why can't we get from where we are? We would save money if we did get to a national health insurance plan. But even in the debate over the Affordable Care Act, the so-called public option, remember that? It wasn't popular enough to get the votes that it needed. So this is a very important and personal issue to me, because I think health care is the fundamental priority in people's lives. If you don't have your health, if you can't get the care you need for yourself and your families, so much else just doesn't work right for you. And that's not just for physical health. We need to do so much more on mental health. We are totally ignoring what needs to be done on mental health. And also substance abuse, treatment for addiction. Those are two huge problems. So I guess my answer is it certainly is a system that many Americans wish we could get to. There is not much chance right now, I think, that we could make that transition. That's why I support and defend the Affordable Care Act, because it provides a stopgap. It provides the opportunity for people to get the health care they need. And when you think about how all the Republicans running are saying that they want to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and there have been more than 50 votes to do that in the Congress, I don't think we want to go back and start over again. I think we want to build a plan that actually works better and controls costs more effectively off of the Affordable Care Act. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's what I think is the most possible route to try to make sure people get the health care that they need at an affordable price. Oh, I love Girl Scouts. I was a Girl Scout. Come right up here. Here you go. Thank you for coming, and thank you for wearing that. Here you go.
My name is Tessa Soboleski, and my grandmother suffers with Alzheimer's disease, and I was wondering where you stand on supporting the research.
I am very much in favor of supporting research into Alzheimer's, and I'm very unhappy and sad that when those of you remember when the budget was negotiated and sequester was put in place, and it was across the board, it was indiscriminate. A lot of medical research, a lot of NIH programs were shut down because there was no money for them. And Alzheimer's took a particular hit in that, because a lot of scientists tell me that we were making progress and then the money basically ran out. So I want us to invest in medical research. I want us to bring the National Institutes of Health back up to where they were and keep growing. It is one of our economic advantages. Our country spent, like $3-4 billion mapping the human genome. And then we did what we're the best at. We made the government investment. We created the new knowledge. Then we turned it over to the not-for-profit, and for-profit sectors in our country. And there has been $985 billion in new businesses and wealth created. So we're making a very short-sighted decision when we cut medical research, especially for a disease like Alzheimer's, because the numbers of people suffering is only going to grow. So the better we can intervene early, find better treatments, try to stop or prevent the disease, that's not only good for the families like your grandmother, that is good for our country, because the caregiving crisis that we are facing is driven by a number of conditions, but principally by Alzheimer's, because people are doing the best they can to take care of their loved ones. I've had 2 personal experiences about that right here in New Hampshire. At a town hall in Dover this summer, I met I called on a woman just like I call on people here, and she stood up and she said she was taking care of her spouse who has Alzheimer's and her mother who has Alzheimer's. And she said, I want to do it, but I need help. I don't have any help. And then I met a young man who is a teacher. He takes care of his mother, who's 84. She has Alzheimer's. He can't afford care for her. There's not enough facilities or resources that he can find to take her, and he can't quit his job, so he takes her to work. And we think about this in the personal stories like your grandmother, but we need to start thinking about it in a much more national way, because it's going to be a huge burden on families, predominantly but not exclusively women, many of whom will drop out of the workforce, many of whom will spend down their savings, and it's going to have a very negative effect on the lives of many Americans. We got to come to grips with what we're going to do to provide some respite care and some support and other alternatives so people can take care of the ones that they love, and research for sure. Yeah, we got lots of hands going up here. Yes, right there. Yeah, here comes a microphone right behind you. Here you go.
Hi, Secretary Clinton. I was wondering what you think about like securing the Mexican border with some of the illegal immigrants that come in. Just wondering.
Well, look, I voted numerous times when I was a senator to spend money to build a barrier to try to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in. And I do think you have to control your borders. But I think that it's also true that we need to do more to try to, number one, deal with the people who are already here, many of whom have been here for decades, because it is just never going to happen that we're going to round up and deport 11 or 12 million people. I don't care how tall the wall is or how big the door is. That is never going to happen. And I think it is an unnecessarily provocative thing to say. We need to secure our borders. I'm for it. I voted for it. I believe in it. And we also need to deal with the families, the workers who are here, who have made contributions, and their children. And we also, Mexican immigration no longer is really the issue. The Mexican economy is doing well enough. We've had no net Mexican immigration in the last several years. We now get immigrants from Central America.
All right, folks, we are now getting ready to show you that rally from yesterday. Donald Trump in Springfield, Illinois. Take a look at the beautiful valley of Arizona. As you can see, that's not a UFO. That's just a plane in the background there. Don't you worry. We're going to get you all set up for Donald Trump rally. And then this is going to be the place to debate the debate. FNN right now, Fox 10 News Now, part of Fox10Phoenix.com. You're in the right place. You've been all evening. You've been all morning. Thanks for coming out, guys. Appreciate it.
Did. And then they said $5,000 to anybody that says certain negative things about Trump. And who did it? Our man. That was pretty cool, right? Hard to believe I wrote that script, but I thought it was pretty cool. So we had a great time, and they saw Hillary tonight. Anybody ever hear of Hillary? Hillary. And you'll be happy to hear that head-to-head, I beat Hillary very easily. Isn't that nice? Very nice. Well, we have to. We have no choice. So Hillary, they said, when you did Saturday Night Live 4 weeks ago, that was the opening show. That traditionally would be their big show. And she had Miley Cyrus, who I think is terrific. And I had Sia, but Sia's not, I love Sia, but, I would say that Miley would have an advantage, would you think, with ratings? So Hillary had Miley Cyrus, supposed to be, the biggest star other than Trump, and kidding. No, my wife feels that, though. She said, you do not realize you are the biggest star anywhere in the world. You do not realize this. You do not realize. And I said, really? Do you mean it? You are bigger than anybody. You are bigger than Tom Cruise. You are bigger than anybody. And a friend of mine said, now I know she's really smart, right? By saying that. Because I'm happy. But it was very interesting because we were talking about Hillary today, and somebody said her performance wasn't that good because she was mispronouncing words, especially when, she mispronounced a couple of words and stuttered a couple of times. And all she had was one little skit. I had the whole evening, and I didn't stutter once, right? I didn't stutter once. And I got really good reviews, except from a couple of people that gave me the review before they saw it. There were some, they wrote up the review before they even saw me. One published it slightly before I went on. That's how I know that was a fact. But we got great reviews. We got great ratings. It was a lot of fun, and I think it made a point, and it was sort of cute. I think one of the popular skits, well, they like the dancing, right? But one of the popular skits was when the president of Mexico, Mr. Trump, Enrique, and he comes in, I have a check for you. And I said, Enrique, it was for $20 billion, right? Now, I can do it for 7. No more Merry Christmas on Starbucks. No more. I wouldn't buy. Hey, look, I'm speaking against myself. I have one of the most successful Starbucks in Trump Tower. Maybe we should boycott Starbucks. I don't know. Seriously. I don't care. By the way, that's the end of that lease, but who cares? Who cares? Who cares? But today, a big story that Starbucks is taking Merry Christmas off. No more Merry Christmas. I will tell you, lots of big things, lots of little things. You can call this anything you want. But if I become president, we're all going to be saying Merry Christmas again. That I can tell you. That I can tell you. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Now, some of the candidates running, including Hillary, the other day, I mean, can you imagine Hillary being president? Can you imagine? She's a little different person. She got a little burst of energy because she figures she's not going to be indicted. She got through the Benghazi hearings, what that was all about. I don't know why they didn't go after her, but she got through those hearings. I blame the Republicans for that, to be honest with you. It's ridiculous. And now she's got a burst of energy, but it won't last long, believe me. It won't last long. Because the energy is not a natural energy, and it's not going to last long. And you can't have it. So, the Zogby poll just came out. Very highly respected Zogby poll. 10 minutes ago, just before I came on, I said, good, I can mention a new poll. And it was Trump leading 30, Carson 17, despite all this stuff going around about him. And everybody else much lower than that. That's good. That's good. Just happened. Zogby, one of the good ones. So Hillary mentioned recently, and so did Jeb Bush, but I don't mention him anymore because it's just not working out. I'll tell you a little secret. So we had him in a really rough line, and we had him in a rough line on Saturday Night Live. The butt of the joke was Jeb. And because I'm so nice, I said, you can't do it. It's too mean. Too nasty. Too nasty. See? How nice am I? It would have been the best crack of the evening, would have been the best joke, and I said, take it out. But Hillary said, she said, good for you. Nice, right? See? Right. I didn't want to do it. In fact, actually, we tried it out, and everybody said, oh, just leave the guy alone. We said, let's take it out. But he's not doing too well. He's not doing too well. And he's been defined. Now I have to define a couple of other people. And it should be easier, actually. I mean, it should be easier. With what's going on with this election, I've never seen anything like it. People are getting away with murder. I never saw anything like this. You can say anything about anybody, and their poll numbers go up. No matter what you do. if you try and hit your mother over the head with a hammer, your poll numbers go up. I never saw anything like it. Now, I haven't seen that yet, but, you know, probably that's going to happen. No, it's a lot of weird things are happening. This is a strange election, isn't it? Man. You stab somebody, and the newspapers say you didn't do it. And you said, yes, I did it. No, you didn't. Yes, I did. I stabbed him and it hit the belt. And they said, you didn't do it. If they said I didn't do it, I'd be so happy. This is the only election in history where you're better off if you stab somebody. What are we coming to? And other things. And other things. A lot of crazy things are happening out there. But Hillary said, I don't like Donald Trump's tone. Didn't like my tone. You know, I built a great company, and I actually have a great temperament. For success, I have a great temperament, I will tell you. And I don't like being ripped off like we're being ripped off. I wouldn't sleep. You know, I'm not a big sleeper. Like 3 hours, 4 hours, I toss and turn, I think, I want to find out what's going on. And, you know, I'm the only one. I'm self-funding my campaign. I'm putting up my own money, right? Except for the little donations where they send in $50 and $17 and $28 and even a few $100. But I'm funding because how do you send back? A woman sends a check for $17, send it back. You can't. And also, that's really an investment in the country. It's an investment in a campaign. There's no influence peddling. I can't be bought for $17. But we have amazing people. And that doesn't amount to, relatively speaking, doesn't amount. But I'm the only one that's self-funding my campaign. I'll put up a lot of money. In fact, we just started with radio ads. Did anybody hear the ads yet? They're good, you know. I figured, why should we go fancy? Let me just talk. We got a mic. I spoke. We will do this. We will do that. We will defeat ISIS. We will build our military strong. We will take care of our vets. Right. I don't believe in Common Core. I want local education. Right. Right? I believe in the Second Amendment. I want to be able to protect myself. I want to protect myself. I want to repeal and replace Obamacare. I didn't say this in the ad, but a couple of extra things. I mean, I want to have a country, and it sounds a little strange at first, but when we talk about it, I want to have leaders that are unpredictable. I don't want leaders saying, we are sending 50 men to Iraq. We are sending 50 men to Syria. Why don't we just send them? Send them. Send them. Now they're being bountied. They're being hunted like dogs are being hunted. Because we have a president that wants to show how tough he is by sending 50 men. So everybody over there, they're not babies. You know, they're not the JV that this guy thought they were, okay? Remember the JV? They're the JV. Well, they just knocked down an airline. They only say it's 99.9% as of today. This is not the JV. But why would we say, at a microphone, we just sent 50 men to Syria? He's what? When we had Iraq, and I was against going into Iraq, and I was against it since a long time, and I was right. And the White House sent people because I guess I get a disproportionate amount of publicity. I made a statement. It was in Reuters like in 2004. It was in one of the big magazines in 2003. Don't go into Iraq. You're going to destabilize the Middle East, and Iran is going to come in and take over Iraq. Iraq has these incredible oil reserves, number 2 in the world. Don't do it, and you'll have other bad things happen. ISIS. You'll have other bad things come out. Don't do it. And I am, by the way, the most militaristic person in this room, and you have some serious, believe me. You know, one of the things I tell people, I will build our military so strong and so powerful that nobody's going to mess with us. We're not going to have to use it. We're not going to have to use it. When General Ordiano left a couple of weeks ago, I saw him on television. All these guys are on television. I don't want my generals on television. I don't want them on television. The word unpredictable, I want to be unpredictable. But when General Ordiano left, he said something that frankly he shouldn't have said, but he said it. He was being interviewed. He's leaving. And he said, our military right now is the least prepared of any time. And I think he said since the beginning. But he could have said since the Second World War, either one of which, can you imagine? Now, if I'm Putin, if I'm China, if I'm this wise guy from North Korea that nobody even talks about, you know, it's interesting. He has nuclear weapons. We go after Iran with one of the dumbest deals in history, right? One of the dumbest. Not one of the dumbest. But they don't talk about the guy in North Korea who actually has nuclear weapons. We've got 28,000 soldiers sitting there on the line between this maniac and South Korea. And I say, South Korea, I order my televisions from South Korea. Unfortunately, we don't make them here, right? You have no choice. Doesn't make me a bad person. I order thousands and thousands of televisions from South Korea for hotels, for all the things I do. They give us, like, relatively, they give us nothing. We protect them. We protect, you know, Saudi Arabia, before the oil went down. Now it's gone down. But before it went down, they were making $1 billion a day. So let's assume now they make a lot. More money than this country will ever be thinking of. Why do we protect? I'm all for Saudi Arabia. Now, I didn't like that when the World Trade Center came down, the scum that knocked it down sent their families all back to Saudi Arabia, and then we attack Iraq. I wasn't exactly thrilled with that. But why is it that we protect Saudi Arabia? We get nothing. We get nothing. Why is it that we protect Japan? Now, Japan is an economic behemoth. They send cars by the millions. If Japan is attacked, we have to defend them to the end. This is the kind of agreements we make. If we're attacked, Japan doesn't have to help us at all. Right? So we protect Germany. I had no idea. Don't forget, I only became a politician 4 months ago. But I'm a very, very fast learner. I'm like the world's fast. I am really a fast learner. We protect Germany. We're protecting. When you talk about an economic monster, take a look at what they sell. Take a look at what they make. And by the way, why she took all of these folks from Syria. This could be one of the great Trojan horses of all time. And you know, in Germany right now, the German people are rioting. The crime is unbelievable. They never had a problem. The German people, Merkel, I always thought she was a hell of a leader. And then about a month ago, I said, is she crazy? And in this country, our president wants to take in 250,000 new people. And I have a heart, believe me, bigger than his heart. But when I look at the migration and the migrant, I look at that big, they call it the big migration. And you too, right? I see all these strong guys. They're all young. And I say, why aren't they fighting for their country? Why are they migrating? And I say, that's a weird thing, right? I see all of these people, and they're young. And I don't see a lot of women. I don't see a lot of children. I see these young, strong men. And I'm saying, what's going on? That's a strange deal. That's a strange deal. So when I was asked about 2 months ago, what do you think about it? Would you take in 3,000? Now, at that time, 3,000. All right. I said, I guess. So do we always have to do it? Do we always have to be the suckers? I guess. Well, what about 5,000? Oh, I guess. Then all of a sudden, a week later, I've been hearing 25,000, 50,000. Now I'm hearing the number is 250,000 people. These are people that don't have documents, that don't have paper. We have no idea where they came from. They may be ISIS, and they probably aren't. You know the old story of the Trojan horse. Could be the ultimate. This could be the great Trojan horse of all time. So it's going to cost us over a 10-year period billions of dollars. I saw a report. I couldn't believe it. Billions and billions of dollars. They've got to learn our language. We've got to set up schools. Are we crazy? And by the way, the Gulf states, some of the wealthiest countries in the world, they will take none. None. They won't put up money. They won't take them. And here we are. We owe $19 trillion. And we're going to take in 250,000 people. It's so sad. I mean, it's so sad. And then I look at a guy like Rubio, who's very, very weak on illegal immigration. He was a member of the Gang of Eight. That meant come in. You know what the Gang of Eight was? Come in. Come in. Come on in. He was a member of the Gang of Eight. Very weak. And by the way, so was Carson. Carson wants to come in, and he wants to let the people come in. You can't do it. You can't do it, folks. We can't take it. Our system can't take it. These are people with no experience. These are people that never met a payroll. These are people that have never done it before, and they don't know what they're doing. They don't. I don't care. They'll do well. They get a nice smile. They look good. Everyone tells me Rubio's a wonderful speaker. I said, well, really? Tell me why. Tell me why. He's a wonderful speaker. He's actually a nice guy. I don't care if he's a nice guy. Honestly, I don't care if he's a nice guy. Remember when he was doing the message to the president? Remember the thing with the water? This guy gets the greatest press. So he's, sweating and sweating, pouring sweat. Now, the president had just spoken, right? And he's doing the message. This is a big thing. They selected him, I think because he was young. So they selected him. And he's talking. I notice, I say, man, is he sweating. And then all of a sudden, and we will fight and we will this. And it wasn't out of a glass, it was out of a bottle. I don't know, maybe he got paid for the company that had the bottle. I don't know. It's the weirdest thing. And then they said, oh, he did such a great job. I said, oh, he did? Some people are lucky or something's going on. Or something's going on. Explain it to me. Now, the last debate, people said Rubio did. Now, in all fairness, every single poll I won that I did the best, okay? I don't know. I don't know. I think I did well. CNBC said I won in their poll. CNBC. If CNBC, after the disgraceful job they did, said I won. But you had Drudge, who's great. You had Time Magazine. I certainly don't have any influence over them. And you had many of them. And you had NBC said I came in third. I was very unhappy with that. But it's sort of interesting because I watched Bush and Rubio going at it. And I heard Bush just got, and honestly, I did, other than he quit at the end, right? You can't quit. He gave a decent statement about Rubio, that he never shows up to vote. You know, he is elected a senator. You're supposed to well, I like it, I don't like it. But Bush gave a decent little preamble. Rubio responded. No great shakes. Wasn't like earth-shattering. And then Bush didn't say anything. And that was the problem. That won't happen with me. Believe me, that won't happen. That won't happen. Because Bush just got absolutely slaughtered the next day. And I think it was his lack of response. And you can't have that. You know, you can't. That's why you need high energy, not low energy, right? We need high energy. So we have people that I'm running against. And honestly, I have to say what I have to say. You know, I have to be honest. I'm a straight shooter. And I think to a certain extent, that's why I'm doing well. And to a certain extent, that's why I draw more hostility than anybody else. Because I don't care. I don't care. The country's so bad now. It's doing so poorly on so many different fronts that whatever it is, they would like me to be more politically correct. I went to an Ivy League school. I'm like an intelligent person. I can be so correct that even the correct people would have said, man, he is the most elegant human being I've ever seen. But we don't have time. We don't have time. Like anchor babies. You remember the reporter? He said, you know, anchor baby is a very derogatory term at a news conference. I said, well, what would you suggest I say? He said, the child of an undocumented immigrant who happened to be born on the wrong side of the boat. I said, no, thank you. And you know, it's true. Remember that deal? The reporter. Someday I'll tell you what his name was. But we can't have people coming over. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people a year. And from all over the world. From all over the world they come. And they get born. They're born here. And now for the next 85 years, we're all taking care of everybody. And you know, if you have, this is true, if in Mexico, as an example, and this doesn't just happen with Mexico, but if you have a baby in Mexico, they'll give you a few days to recover and you're the hell out of there with the baby. If you want to become a citizen of Mexico, it's one of the hardest countries in the world to become a citizen of. One of the hardest. I couldn't do it. Although maybe I'm very good at that stuff, but maybe. But you know, you go to Mexico and you're there for a week and you have a pass for a week. They come up and see you at the end of a week. Are you prepared to leave, sir? A friend of mine was in Mexico. Nice guy, nice family. They came to him a day before. The police, are you leaving tomorrow, sir? Well, you'll have to apply. Hey, by the way, I'm not saying that's wrong. That's the right way of doing things. That's the right way of doing things. With us, people come in, they stay for the rest of their lives. We're stupid. We have stupid people leading us. We have incompetent people. No, we have incompetent people leading us. And we can't keep doing it. We can't keep doing it. You're at 19 trillion, but you heard the report today with unfunded liabilities and all the other problems, you could be at over $60 trillion. I don't even want to say it, but you could be at $60 trillion. They're talking about all the unfunded liabilities. So we have got to get this election right. We can't go with these politicians, all talk, no action, don't know what they're doing, don't give a damn about anything but being reelected. That's all they care about. That's all they care about. And some of them are nice. I mean, they're nice people. Ben Carson said the other day that as far as Medicare is concerned, now Medicare works. There's waste, there's fraud, there's abuse. We can take care of it largely. But Medicare works, and he wants to abolish Medicare. How can you possibly be popular if you want to abolish Medicare? It actually works. Would anybody mind losing Medicare in this audience? Huh? Right? You can't do it. You can't do it. Too many things involved. And the things that do work, we want to hold on to it. So what happens is in the next election, I believe it's going to be the most important election, certainly within the last 100 years, that this country has ever had. I really believe it. And we have so many things to do, and we're going to do them. And we're going to do them right. We're going to straighten out the country. We're going to run it, and I don't even want to say as a business, because we have to have heart. We have to have heart. But we're going to run our country properly, and we're going to be proud of our country. And we're not going to let China take all of our jobs and business. We're not going to let them. We're not going to let them. We're not going to have websites that cost $5 billion like Obamacare. Everybody forget about it. You forgot about it. We're not going to have a website that costs $5 billion and to this day doesn't work. And we're not going to have a plan where our president lied to us 28 different times by saying you can keep your doctor, you can keep everything, you can have whatever you want just to prove it. And he makes it right on the button because Democrats that voted for Obamacare would have never done it, except he lied. And then the Republicans did nothing about the lie. I'm almost, and I have to say this, I'm a Republican, I'm a conservative guy, but I'm a Republican. I'm almost more disappointed in the Republicans than I am in the Democrats. Because the Republicans say we're going to go and fix, and we're going to this, and then I tell the story, and I've seen them. I've supported them. I support so many people. So I don't even know who the hell they are. Bing, bang, checks. Who's he? Where's he from? He's a Republican. Okay, good luck. They go down. They go down to Washington, and something happens to them. You've heard me say it before, right? We're going to stop Obamacare. We're going to this, we're going to that, we're going to be great. And then they walk into that gorgeous, the Capitol, and they see that beautiful ceiling, the vaulted ceiling, that now has scaffolding all over it, but these are minor details. But they see these beautiful halls and these beautiful columns, and they're with their wife. Look, darling, we finally made it. We finally made it. And now it's time to come up with a tough vote on many things. On budget. Did you see the budget? It was passed like in 2 seconds. The budget. And they go, yes, oh yes, yes. Please don't ever take me away from these hallowed halls. Something happens to these people. I promise you it will not happen to me. I promise. Just a couple of things. I talk about this Iran deal only because, to me, it's maybe the worst contract. Forget about deals between countries or whatever. It could be the worst contract I've ever seen drawn. I've seen some bad ones. I buy bad contracts. I love bad contracts. You buy them, you can buy them cheap, and then you work them out. Throw them into a chapter. You do a lot of things. I get credit. Well, Mr. Trump, is it true that you filed bankruptcy? I said, no, I bought a thing, and I threw it in, and I did a great number, and I mean, look, I'm a businessman, right? I did a number on the banks. I did a number on everybody, and I have something good. I love bad contracts. Buying them is great. Now, in his case, I really wish that was a good contract. But that contract is one of the most incompetent deals. We gave everything. We gave $150 billion to a terrorist nation. They don't need nuclear because they can buy it. They don't have to work on it. They have so much money now they can buy it. And these are people that riot in the streets, burning the flag. Did you see yesterday burning flags all over Iran? You know, at what point does the president say, wait a minute, this is too much? On television, they're burning our flag all over Iran. They're saying death to America, death to Israel, death to anybody. And we're giving them $150 billion. We're letting them, how about this one, self-police. They are going to tell us whether or not they're building nuclear weapons. Now think of it. They're going to tell us, I promise we are not building. Can you believe this? This is Kerry. He may be the worst negotiator. In fact, I've said Hillary Clinton is the worst Secretary of State in history. Okay? I have bad news for you. Because of the deal that Kerry made with Iran, he may be worse. He may be worse. Hate to say it. So they have the 24-day period. But think about this. We have 4 hostages over there. They're hostages. They're holding 4. When it started years ago, did you ever see a negotiation take so long? When it started years and years ago, this negotiation, when it started, what happened? Why didn't we say we want our hostages back, and if you don't give them back, we're doubling and tripling the sanctions? They would have been back to the table that evening, and we would have had these people here. I met one of their wives, who's a phenomenal woman. Her husband's in jail because he's a Christian. You believe this? And he's over there. And these jails are serious jails. These are the meanest places. They say it's one of the worst in the world. Can you imagine? So we've got 4 people over there. We're giving all of this money, all of this access. They will have nuclear weapons soon, and we don't even get them back. Now today, and over the last short period, they say, we will now discuss the hostages. Why didn't we get them back? Why didn't we say, before we start, 3 years ago, before we start, we want our hostages back, and they will say no, and we will say, bye-bye, see you, double up the sanctions. They'll call you. They'll call you. Within 24 hours, yes, you would give your hostages back. We are led by people that are so weak and so ineffective. They don't respect us. They don't respect us at all. Now, why wouldn't we have said, you give them? And I will tell you this. If I win, those hostages, I guarantee, will be back long before I take office. I tell you right now. But you know what's happening? Already now we just gave them $150 billion. Now we're having new negotiations, and they want 19 people. We won't give you all 4 back. We'll only give you 3. We want 19 million, and as this guy who's far too smart for Kerry, the chief negotiator from Iran, said, we want 19 people, and we want many other things. Can you believe this? You know, I would like to throw something at the television. You just can't believe it. You can't believe it. So now we're negotiating to get our hostages back. And when they asked Kerry and the president, why didn't we get the hostages back? They said, we didn't want to complicate the negotiation. Okay? Didn't want to complicate. All you do is you start, and not at the end. You start, say, we want it. We did the art of the deal. They didn't read the art of the deal. Do you agree? They didn't read the art of the deal. But why wouldn't you start by saying we want it back? Now, the reason I bring that up is it just shows how foolish we are. Whether it's that, or I always say Sergeant Bergdahl, that's military. But we get a dirty, rotten traitor who I'd like to dump right back where we got him. You know, he left. He left. 6 people got killed looking for him, right? He left because he said, oh, when I looked at his father, I said, whoa, whoa, what have we here? Right? I said, whoa, what's this all about? So he left, and he thought, oh, this is going to be wonderful. He's good. Well, they knocked the hell out of him. He didn't have a good time. I don't think he'll be going there anytime soon, right? But here's the amazing thing. In the old days, when we were strong and wise, we shoot a guy like that. A traitor. He's a traitor. No, we shoot him. I don't care. In the old days, when we were strong and wise, traitors were treated very, very harshly. If you look at what happened last week, they feel that he wasn't really 100% feeling well. Perhaps he should get no jail time whatsoever. Do you believe this? This is what, okay. So here's the way we negotiate. I call Obama the 5-for-1 president. We get Bergdahl. They get 5 of their best, toughest, meanest killers that they've been trying to get out of there for 9 years, right? And that's the way we negotiate. That's the way we negotiate. When China just ordered 300 jets, I don't know if you know with Boeing, right? China just ordered 300 planes. Boeing is now insisting, and, one of those things, they came to us, they now have to build a plant, a big, beautiful, nice new airplane manufacturing plant in China. Why? Why? We can't make the plane in South Carolina? Yes, we can. We can't make the planes in Seattle? Yes, we can. They make their product in China, and they send it to us. So Boeing now has to give up their trade secrets. Not that it matters because China steals them anyway, but Boeing has to give up their trade secrets, and Boeing is going to build this incredible, massive plant in China so that China doesn't have to go through us anymore. And I'll tell you what will happen. Eventually, Boeing loses because China will end up taking the plant and say, thank you very much, you dumb suckers. That's what's going to happen. And we can't let this continue to go on. We can't let it continue to go on. Now, somebody said from the Wall Street Journal today, they said, well, you're wrong about trade. I believe in free trade. They said I'm wrong. Give me a break. Big article, big thing. Trump's wrong about trade. They're talking about NAFTA. That's been a real good one for us, right? People built factories all over Mexico. We lose factories all over the United States, and I'm hearing how I'm wrong. How is that? Let me ask you. How is that good for us? We close a factory in New England. It moves down to Mexico. They do the jobs. They build this factory. They employ them. The Mexicans get employed. Other people get employed. Other countries get employed. How is it good for us? How is it good when we lose a factory? They build it in Mexico. They hire the people of their country, which of course they should, and they sell the product to us with no tax. Why is that good? You know, I'm like really smart. I'm trying to figure for a long time why. Why is it good? It's not going to happen anymore, folks. Not going to happen. Not going to happen anymore. A friend of mine is a manufacturer, and a really good one, and he sells to China. He tells me all about it. He knows better than any professor or any jerk I could hire or anybody in the government. They don't know what they're doing. Did you see the other day Carl Icahn, the great Carl Icahn, came out and endorsed Trump? I'll stop corporate inversion. I'll stop all these things that are happening. All these things. But my friend tries to go to China, and for years he's been dealing with China. He knows China better than anybody you could hire. He said it's impossible. He said, number one, they don't want your product. They make it impossible to take it in. And he makes better product than they do, by far. They'll find any reason. Oh, environmentally we don't like. They'll find any reason not to have that product. So what happens, he goes to China, and he meets, and they negotiate a deal. They want a massive tax to be paid if he sells his product in China. We don't do that. So I'm a free trader. But we need smart trade. We can't let it be that we lose almost $400 billion. We want smart trade. How does it help us? And I tell this story. And I tell it again because, frankly, to me, it's a great story. I mean, to me, it's the ultimate. It's the Ford plant. I tell it all the time. In Mexico, they're building a $2.5 billion Ford plant, closing up plants all over the United States, mostly in Michigan. They're building a $2.5 billion. You know what that is? $2.5 billion for a one-story building? It's going to go on forever. So they're going to hire all Mexican people, which is fine. And those people are going to get jobs, which is fine. People in Michigan, people from our country out. Tennessee, the same thing, by the way. A big plant that was going to happen in Tennessee decided at the last moment they're going to move to Mexico. Mexico's becoming the car capital of the world, by the way. And I would tell the head of Ford very strongly, and you got to understand, I said it at the beginning, I'm not taking political contributions. Nobody's giving me $4, $5, $6 million. Somebody said the other day, these super PACs, by the way, are a scam. A scam. The super PACs are controlling every one of these guys. They're controlling these politicians. I will tell you, the super PAC that Carson has is running Iowa. You're not supposed to do that. The super PAC that Rubio has, the super PAC, Bush has $125 million in a super PAC. And these people are absolutely running. They're absolutely running the politicians. They have total and complete control over the politicians. And I say this, so let me ask you this. I'm president, and I don't like it. And they call me, and they want to negotiate. Mr. President, all the lobbyists, many of whom I know, I have no interest in helping them. I'm going to do what's right for you. when a guy who just gave $5 million to Hillary or Jeb or Rubio or any of them. By the way, this guy's Singer. They say he's a billionaire. Not as rich as I am, so that's... But he might be a nice guy. Heavy into weak immigration. Heavy. So you know that Rubio, where he's going right after the election. He's got to. The guy's giving him a lot of money. They were all fighting over the guy. But tell me this. Who do you want negotiating for you? Think. Who do you want? Politicians cannot negotiate. I've made a fortune over my lifetime dealing with politicians. They can't negotiate because they don't care. They just want to keep people happy that help them. They don't care. And I tell the story. So let's say that I used to use Jeb Bush. Let's now say, who should I use? Who do you want me to use? I can use any of them. I can use any of them. You want me to use Rubio? How about I'll use Hillary? How about Hillary? So they come up to see her, and she said, you know, she's not a dummy. And she'll come and she'll say, that's a bad deal. And they'll say, Madam President, you can't fight that because a special interest group gave you $5 million between your foundations and everything else, but they gave you $5 million and they want this plant to be built. You can't do it, Madam President. She said, well, it's such a bad deal. You can't do it. Then her lobbyist will come up. That's been her friend for years. That's been giving her millions and millions of dollars every time she runs. And he'll say, Hillary, you can't do this. These people have helped you out. And you know what's going to happen? Not 99%, 100%. She's going to say, okay, let the plant go forward. Okay? She knows it's wrong. But it's common sense. It's human nature. Now, President Trump. President Trump. So now President Trump, they come and they call him, and they say, Mr. Trump, would like to see you. This is the head of Ford. I said, what do you want? Are you the one that's building a plant in Mexico? Yes, sir, and I'd like to explain why it's a great idea. It's not a great idea. I'm like an intelligent. There's not a great idea. It's bad. You're closing in Michigan. You're closing other places. We're losing thousands and thousands of jobs. Then you're going to send your stuff. You're going to have it driven over by the illegals over the border. They'll drive it because you get them, right? You know who's going to drive the cars over? The illegals. Because nobody checks them. Why not use them, right? So I'm going to say, why is it a good idea? After about a minute, I'll cut them off. Then I'll be called by friends of mine. Then I'll be called by special interests. Then I'll be called by lobbyists. But they didn't give me any money, and I didn't take any money. So I don't care. And I'll say to the president of Ford, I'm sorry, but unless you build in this country, our country, where we have jobs, where we want to have great people, unless you do that, we are going to charge you a 35% tax on every single car that you wheel over the border. Every single one. This plant makes cars, trucks, and parts. Every one, 35%, and that's only because I'm being nice. So here's what's going to happen. They'll put a little pressure on me, believe me. Zero chance. Within 24 hours, probably a lot sooner than that, I'll get a call from the head of Ford or Nabisco or Boeing or whoever. It's all the same. All the same. They went to worse schools than I did, believe me. All the same. I will get a call from the head of Ford, Mr. President, we are going to build our plant in the United States. 100%. 100%. 100%. It's not even close. And I don't mean like, maybe I think I can do it. Now, no other politician can do that for two reasons. Number one, they don't have the business up here. They don't have it. Number two, they're controlled by the lobbyists, special interests, and their PACs. They're totally controlled. So I will do such a good job. Here's the thing. The American dream, and I say it, the American dream is largely dead. It is, because between the regulations and the problems and all of the things, we will take regulations so far back, so many years back, and we'll keep some good ones. We'll bring regulations back so far you won't even believe it. But I say it all the time. The American dream is dead, but I'm going to make it bigger and better and stronger than ever before. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. We're going to make our country so strong and so rich and so powerful. We are going to take care of our people. Our people are going to come first. We're not going to allow incompetent politicians, stupid people, to be out-negotiated every single time by other countries and other representatives. We're not going to have it anymore. Not going to happen. We are going to run our country so well and so tight and so smart. And you know what? All of these countries, India, Brazil, Japan, Mexico, everybody, they're going to respect us again. And they're going to like us better than they do now. They don't even like us. And we are going to make America great again. Believe me, I promise you. And I love you all. I love you all. Thank you. We will make America great again. Thank you.
All right, that's a wrap on Donald Trump's most recent speech. We are. I
love you. Thank you.
We have about 15 minutes of Hillary Clinton speaking earlier today. I'm going to jump to that to give you the other a better sense of what else is going on in the political world. Actually, quick look at outside of the debate. But let's take a look at Hillary from earlier today.
We're a nationwide community of veterans, of frontline civilians, policy and political professionals committed to a strong, smart, and principled foreign policy for America. I'm honored to be here today with so many of my fellow veterans, and particularly by fellow veteran, Vietnam veteran Bob Harriman, and former military family member Karen Morgan, who's a brave woman with an incredible story. As a former Army officer, I'm proud to be back in my home state to have a conversation about an issue that I think is close to all of our hearts. There's been little talk on the campaign trail about veterans for the most part, or frankly, serious talk about national security. And all too often what we do here is lip service, or worse, empty tough talk. That's why Truman is so happy to be hosting what we believe will be a thoughtful, substantive conversation about the challenges and opportunities facing America's veterans and what we can do to support them and to honor their service. It's a conversation that we at Truman hope will continue and draw in other candidates, all of whom we hope should have something meaningful to say about these issues. So with that, I am proud to introduce and to be here with a woman who has served our nation and represented us abroad for decades, as a Secretary of State, as a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee, as a First Lady, and as a military family member herself. She has been involved with and a leader on so many of the issues that are near and dear to those of us in the Truman community. And we're looking forward to talking with her today about her plans and her thoughts for America's veterans, present and future. Please join me in welcoming Secretary Hillary Clinton.
Thank you. Thank you all. I'm delighted to be here. I am grateful to all of you for welcoming us. I want to thank the Derry VFW and all of the veterans and family members who have joined us. I thank Mike Breen, as he said, a son of New Hampshire, now heading a very important organization that is asking a lot of really hard questions. And in a few minutes, we'll hear from Bob and Karen as well. But I guess I should start by saying, are there any Marines here? And the reason I ask is today's the 240th anniversary of the United States Marine Corps. And I have to say, you've never looked better. But I want to thank all the veterans here from every service. You've earned more than I can ever express in terms of our gratitude and our respect. But you not only deserve to have the thanks of a grateful nation, you deserve to have the best care and benefits that this nation can offer you. And you know, America's promise to our veterans is a sacred responsibility, and it's one that I will uphold as president. I didn't learn this from politics. I learned this from my own family, from my own father. My dad was in the Navy during World War II, and he served as a chief petty officer at Great Lakes Naval Station, which is just north of Chicago. He trained thousands of sailors before they headed off to fight, mostly to the Pacific. After he died many years later, I was First Lady. He died shortly after Bill became president. I started getting letters and photographs from some of the men that he had trained. They shared bonds of service and respect that endured for decades. And I treasure those photographs, which are mostly my dad standing in his uniform in front of rows of young men as they're getting ready to depart. As First Lady, those memories guided me as I worked with veterans suffering from what we came to know as the Gulf War Syndrome. That came to my attention through letters sent to me as First Lady, from veterans, but mostly from spouses who wrote and said, you know, my husband went off to the Gulf. He was strong, energetic. He could, you know, run for miles, and he came home and he can barely breathe and he can hardly walk upstairs. There's something wrong. So I talked to my husband, and he asked me to work with the military and the VA and the veteran service organizations to see what we could find out. And indeed, there was something wrong. And over time, that became recognized, and people began to be treated for what they had been exposed to when they were serving. Later, as a senator on the Armed Services Committee, I worked hard to address what became some of the signature injuries of the wars of modern times. And they were post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury. I remember being at Walter Reed as a senator from New York, visiting some of the young military men and women who I represented. And I was walking down the hallway, and a young officer came by, and he stopped me, introduced himself. And I could see that he'd lost an arm. And he said to me, Senator Clinton, I get great help in dealing with the loss of my arm. But where do I go to get the help that I need for dealing with the loss of my brain? I was so overwhelmed by that and worked with my colleagues to try to come up with more research money, more support, to try to really deal with the challenges that too many were facing. I also, though, was worried about the physical injuries. The good news was we were keeping people alive on the battlefield that never would have survived in prior wars. But the challenging news was that we had to do more to make sure that they didn't just survive, but they could live. I teamed up with Senator John McCain to raise money for and help build a new state-of-the-art physical rehabilitation facility. It's in San Antonio, on Sam Houston at Brook. I went there and visited it shortly after it opened, and I could see what world-class help looked like. It really served an enormous service in taking care of wounded service members coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan. Today, as you know better than anyone, we are failing to keep faith with our veterans. Long wait times for health care, absolutely inexcusable claims that are sitting in backlogs, both originally to be determined and then appeals. There's little or no coordination between different government agencies responsible for serving our veterans. These problems are serious, systemic, and unacceptable. They need to be fixed, and they need to be fixed now. There are 4 areas that I want to mention before we open it up for questions that I will push to see immediate progress. First, we have to reform the VA to guarantee that our veterans have reliable and consistent access to high-quality health care. They've earned it, they deserve it, they should receive it. I think Secretary McDonald is doing a great job, but there is a lot more that has to be done to transform the Veterans Health Administration from just a provider of services into a truly integrated healthcare system. As you know so well, here in New Hampshire, you are the only state in the lower 48 without a full-service VA hospital. So you know better than probably anybody else how hard it is to navigate a patchwork system to find the high-quality care you need and deserve. If we can maintain the most advanced military in the history of the world and fight wars across vast oceans and continents, we can figure out how to ensure that no veterans ever have to wait in line for weeks or months to get care, no matter where you live, no matter what your needs are. All of this starts with accountability, from the top leadership to mid-level managers to entry-level employees. Everyone at the VA has to meet the highest standards and never forget their mission. As president, within the first 30 days of my taking office, I will personally convene the Secretary of Veterans Affairs and the Secretary of Defense to begin regular joint meetings and direct them to sync up their systems, coordinate efforts at every level, and enforce zero tolerance for the kind of abuses and delays we have seen. And if the laws or the regulations need to be changed, we will have begun putting that into a priority list before I even become president, because I want us to hit the ground running to get those changes made. For example, the VA currently uses more than 100 different electronic health record systems. Different sites can't talk to each other, much less talk to the Department of Defense or hospital systems. I saw a story just today that more than 35,000 combat veterans have been waiting for 7 months to get health care because of a computer glitch. Now, this doesn't make any sense, and it does a great disservice. We have got to bring our government, leading with our VA system, into the 21st century when it comes to technology. We have technology in the private sector. We need to match it in the public sector, and there's no more important place to do that than in the VA system. But I want to tell you today, right here in Derry, as we work to improve the VA, I will fight as long and hard as it takes to prevent Republicans from privatizing it as part of a misguided ideological crusade. You know, we've seen how they try to seize on anything they can do to advance this goal of theirs, which will throw our vets into the private insurance market. Now, I believe in giving vets more choice in when and how you receive care. And I think there should be more partnerships between the VA and private hospitals and community health care providers. But we cannot, and I will not, put our vets at the mercy of private insurance companies without any care coordination, or leave them to fend for themselves with health care providers who have no expertise in the unique challenges that are facing our veterans. Our young veterans, our aging veterans, everybody has specific, unique challenges that I think we've got to get the VA better equipped and ready to address. Now, privatization is a betrayal, plain and simple, and I'm not going to let it happen. Now, secondly, we need a VA for the 21st century, not the 20th. And that means serving an increasingly diverse community with new and different needs. Women are making up a bigger and bigger percentage of the veterans community, and the numbers are projected to grow in the years ahead. And as women compete for more open positions, their needs are going to change. Yet too often the VA is just not equipped to serve women. Nearly a third of VA clinics have no OBGYNs, and in some cases, women who have lost limbs fighting for our country have found that the only prosthetics available are designed for men, so they don't fit. That has to change. As a senator on the Armed Services Committee during the height of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, I saw how the changing nature of warfare is impacting the men and women who serve, especially the scourge of improvised explosive devices, the
And this is a live look at the outside of the debate. Let me take you. Jeb's strutting his wonky stuff. Jeb strutting his wonky stuff. Long answer about Obama policies to overturn, says Steve Kraft. Steve Kraft is currently live tweeting the debate for us. At the debate, let's find another. Let's see, where's my story from tonight?
Close what's now called the Charleston loophole, where the guy got a gun, which he never was entitled to because he actually had a felony conviction, but they didn't find out in time, and the rule is 3 days you get the gun, and he used it to murder those 9 people in church. And we need to reverse the immunity from liability that the Congress voted to give gun makers and gun sellers. And here's an example of why that's important. The man who went into the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, remember? He bought a huge amount of ammunition online from a seller called Lucky Gunner. He didn't have to pass a background check. Nobody could look him in the eye and say, wait a minute, there's something off about this guy, or maybe we don't want to do this, or you come back in a few days after we've checked you out. He just put in the order and he got it. And one of the families of a young woman who was murdered by him sued to say, how can you have no accountability at all, no legal responsibility whatsoever to sell weapons and ammunition online? And they brought a lawsuit, and because of the law that the Congress passed giving immunity, they lost. And then to add insult to injury and to grief, under a state law, they were told they had to pay the NRA $200,000 for the legal defense of the guy they sued. This is crazy, folks. I mean, there's nobody standing out there wanting to take your gun if you're a responsible American. But personally, I don't want fugitives, felons, stalkers, domestic abusers, terrorists being able to go buy guns without any background check and anybody standing in the way. So we have a lot of work to do in our country, and we also have challenges overseas. I went to 112 countries as your Secretary of State. I was always so proud to be representing our country in whatever place I was. And I know how important that we maintain American leadership and that we lead by our values and furtherance of our interests, and to advance our security and that of our friends and our partners and our allies around the world. And when I hear the Republicans talk, they fall into two camps. There's the one camp, which is the answer to everything, more soldiers and bombs. And the other camp, we shouldn't get involved with anybody anywhere, just pull up the gangplank and retreat. There is no substitute for American leadership. There's not any group, any nation that will step in who shares our values if we retreat. Now, when I hear the Republicans talk like that, I'm also usually mentioned in the conversation. Honestly, sometimes I wonder what they would talk about if I weren't around. But, they go on and on about, oh, what has she ever done and all that stuff. They go on and on. So I listened to this for a while, and then I thought, well, maybe they just don't know. So I sent them all a copy of my book, Hard Choices, about my 4 years in the State Department. And, I thought if they were interested in how you pull together an international coalition, including China and Russia, to put crippling sanctions on Iran to drive them to the negotiating table, they could read about it. It's in there. Or if they wanted to maybe find out how you get a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas by negotiating with the Muslim Brotherhood president in Cairo, I wrote about that too. I also said, look, there's so many of you, you could have a book club, and you could read this and kind of discuss it among yourselves. And I haven't gotten one thank you note, but I'm still waiting. We're all kind of busy right now. Look, today at the state capitol, when I signed my papers, and there was a big crowd in the corridor shaking my hand and clapping, and then I went outside and I talked to the crowd out there. A lot of people say to me, gosh, how do you do this? I mean, how can you keep doing this? And I'll tell you why. I mean, I feel so blessed that I'm an American. I'm the granddaughter of a factory worker from Scranton, Pennsylvania, who came here as a child immigrant and went to work in the lace mills. And he worked really hard. And he did it to support his family, of course, but he did it to give his 3 sons a better life. And he did. Each of them went to college. My dad graduated from college in the middle of the Depression and hopped a freight train from Scranton to Chicago because he heard there was a job he could get, and he became a salesman. And then when World War II started, he joined the Navy, and he trained sailors who were being sent off to fight in the Pacific. And when he died, I got letters from some of those sailors. including pictures of my dad standing there in his chief petty officer uniform with rows and rows of young men in their whites going off to defend our country. And my mother had a very different experience. You know, she was rejected, neglected, abandoned by her parents, sent to live with grandparents who didn't want her. And by the age of 14, she was out on her own working as a housemaid. So her family gave up on her, but America didn't give up on her. And she never got to go get that college degree, which she wanted so much. But she made sure I did. And I'm standing here before you 3 generations later from my grandfather, asking you to support me for president, because that's the story that I was raised to believe in, that I have lived, and that I want to make sure is real for Americans today. You know, we have this amazing 13-month-old grandchild now, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure she has every opportunity in life. But I have to tell you, that's not enough. It really matters what kind of country she becomes an adult in, what kind of world is out there waiting for her. And it also really matters that every other kid in our country has the same chance to live up to his or her God-given potential. And I got to tell you, you shouldn't have to be the granddaughter of a former president to be able to take advantage of the chances and blessings America has offered. You should be able to be the granddaughter of a factory worker or the grandson of a truck driver. And I'm going to do everything I can as your president to make sure that is real. Thank you all very much. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. Well, thank you all. I'd love to take some questions, and obviously whatever is on your mind. I think do we have some microphones around? Do we have some microphones, or are you going to have to kind of be? Yes, we do have a microphone. This lady right there in the turquoise shirt. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Diana Chapman. I'm interested in your role as Commander-in-Chief. I'm the daughter of a Marine Corps officer who fought in Korea and Vietnam. I think you're going to be inheriting ISIS. And I'm wondering how you're going to prepare for that if you're thinking boots on the ground. In that case, what are you going to do when the first POW gets executed and it's streamed live to the world? If you could address that, I'd appreciate it.
You know, as I said very briefly, we have a lot of opportunities in the world and we have a lot of threats and dangers. And ISIS is the first kind of internet terrorist network. They are very adept at recruiting, propagandizing, even training, and setting up attacks. So I think that it's imperative that we be constantly working with other nations who have a more immediate danger from ISIS, even though I believe the danger goes far beyond the Middle East. And we should be willing to recognize that. So here is where I think the United States is right now and what I support and what I would do in addition. Defense Secretary Carter said the other day that our new strategy is what he called the 3 R's: Raqqa, Ramadi, and raids. Raqqa is the city they operate out of in northern Syria. Ramadi is the Iraqi city that they captured, which is a center of northern central Iraq, a Sunni city. And raids is what the president has decided we're going to be doing more of by committing special ops forces. But there is no military solution to ISIS unless we get a better coordinated effort from an Iraqi army that will fight, from the Kurds who will be able to focus on ISIS and not be constantly having to fight rearguard actions against the Turks and others who are worried about their ability to establish some territorial holds. With the Russians now, with the latest information about their plane being perhaps bombed, having to decide, are they really most focused on Assad's enemies or on their own? Because ISIS did take credit, although it's not yet been totally concluded that's what happened. So we've got to do intensive diplomacy to get everybody on the same page. ISIS poses a very serious threat to the region, and because they are recruiting fighters from Europe, a few from the United States who have passports that are going to enable them to travel around, there has to be a much more focused and sustainable effort against them. And we have to do, as I think Ash Carter rightly said, everything we can to try to take out their support systems in Raqqa, their supply chains, their recruitment mechanisms, and we have to get the Iraqi army in shape, working with the Kurdish Peshmerga to take back Ramadi and the other cities that they have taken over. We also have to try to disrupt their financing. You know, they are quite adept at stealing oil and selling it on the black market. They are also looting antiquities, and the ones they're not destroying, they are, you know, taking and selling a lot of what was left in sites and museums. So we've got to disrupt their financing mechanism. And finally, we have to be very clear about what we will do and what we won't do. And I believe we are going to have to continue air support and surveillance and intelligence and reconnaissance and special operators. But I don't believe we should at all consider putting American troops into the area to fight ISIS. If we can't get others to do that work, then we will have to have Plan B, where we try to contain them. But I'm betting that if we and others push hard and try to rebuild the Iraqi army that the former Prime Minister Maliki basically destroyed, and if we are able to support the Kurds, who are good fighters and have some reach, and if we get the Turks to pay attention to ISIS more than they are paying attention to the Kurds for at least a period of time, and if we get Russia and Iran to understand that there has to be a political settlement because it's the continuing civil war that has created the opportunity for a cancer like ISIS to take root and grow, and maybe the Russians will be more receptive now. I have advocated a no-fly zone, and by that I mean one in coalition working with the nations in the area and others who are flying missions against ISIS and other terrorist groups. They're not the only terrorist group, but they're the most sophisticated and broadly based territorially. And I think that if we can get the Russians on board and the Iranians and the Turks on board, what a no-fly zone would do is give us a chance to have some safe territories that we then could protect from ISIS and maybe stop the flow of refugees, because that's a tragedy in and of itself. So this is a highly complicated set of challenges that are presented to us. And there is no substitute for constant diplomacy. And, you know, I believed that before I became Secretary of State, and I really came out believing it even more, that no matter how hard the problem is, you have to keep working at it, and you have to keep trying to bring people to the table to be part of whatever the solution might be. And it beats, you know, rushing into war. And even though, you know, I supported the Iran agreement, as I said, I did the sanctions and I started the secret negotiations through Oman. And I mean, I don't trust the Iranians. I mean, who would? But the idea that we would immediately jump to the conclusion that the only way to try to prevent them from getting a nuclear weapons was through military action, I thought was, you know, too quick and not particularly well-founded. And this had been going on for a while. You know, look, I mean, the Iranians mastered the nuclear fuel cycle when George W. Bush was president. They built covert facilities when he was president. They were dashing to install as many centrifuges. And so when President Obama came into office, asked me to be Secretary of State, we thought if we didn't kind of disrupt that move that they were on, that we would have ended up with, you know, a nuclear weapon arsenal in Iran. So it was very painstaking. There was no easy shortcut to it. And I feel exactly the same way about what's going on in the Middle East right now. We need constant diplomatic effort, and we need to have some leverage, which is one of the other reasons that I support, floating the no-fly zone idea, because we need some leverage to get people at the table that will then cooperate with us to go after what the primary goal of ISIS eradication is. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. Okay, go ahead. You stood up, but then I want to get to some of the other parts of the room, too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
This is more homegrown here. I just want you to know a couple statements. First off, I've been with you since the cookie incident. I campaigned for you, and then it was a bitter pill, but I went with Obama after you didn't get it. As a student of history, I feel right now this country is as divided as since the Civil War. My question to you is, for the first time in all of the times I've listened to you, when you said the Republicans as your enemy, it was disheartening. I'm not asking you to retract it. What I'm asking you is, when you are president, would you please extend the olive branch and let us, because we're all Americans, Hillary.
Yeah, I agree with that. I was answering, I think they sometimes view me that way, and that, like the Iranians, et cetera. Now, when I was First Lady, when I was Senator, when I was Secretary of State, I always reached out to Republicans and worked closely with them. One of the things that, we did, after, as Amy said in her introduction, was the Children's Health Insurance Program after we were not successful getting affordable care passed in my husband's administration. I worked with Ted Kennedy and Orrin Hatch. We reformed the adoption and foster care system. I worked with Tom DeLay. I got to the Senate. I worked with Lindsey Graham to provide TRICARE medical benefits to people in the National Guard. I have done that. I will continue to do that. I know how to find common ground. I know how to stand my ground. And I think that is how we need to go at it. But I also think this election is particularly important for people to listen carefully to what candidates are saying. Because it's been my experience that people who run for office and get elected actually try to do what they tell you they intend to do. And I think it would be a grave mistake to go back to trickle-down economics, to go back to giving tax breaks to the wealthy, to get out of the way of corporations, to avoid the dangers and the opportunities presented by climate change and everything I talked about earlier. So it will be a contentious election. And what I have found in my 20-plus years of experience in this arena is that when I'm in office, I have great relations with Republicans. They say wonderful things about me. When I'm running for office, it's a little different. And I get that. I understand that. But you can rest assured, at the base of political action are relationships, just like anything else in life. I will do whatever I can to find that common ground. And I hope there will be a lot of common ground. We just saw common ground on the Export-Import Bank in the House of Representatives. And, I agreed with the Republicans who joined with Democrats. And they did it because the facts are pretty clear. Every other major country we compete with has some kind of system to support their exporters. And if we take that tool away, you're going to lose jobs in New Hampshire and you're going to lose jobs across America that we shouldn't be losing. We're in a competitive global economy. I cite that as just one example. So Republicans bucked their leadership because they looked at the evidence. And I'm hoping that with the new leadership in the House, there will be some opportunities to find even more common ground. At least that's what I'm counting on. Yeah, right there. Yes, yeah. Yeah, here, let me hold this for you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Hillary, I was a fan of yours 20 years ago when you tried to improve health care. And I was disappointed that it didn't work out. So you understand the dynamics of health care in our country better than any other candidate. We're still the only developed country without universal health care. And while Obamacare has improved coverage, people are still going without care. Bernie Sanders has been advocating for Medicare for all. And with the freedom to choose your own doctor and low administrative costs compared to insurance companies, it's always sounded like the best way to go. Do you support Medicare for all? And if so, how likely is it to be passed? And if not, why not?
Well, first of all, I support Medicare, and I support it because it has one of the lowest administrative costs of any insurance provider in America. And it is demonized and it is, attacked all the time when the facts are quite contrary. Given it covers older people and sicker people, especially toward the end of life, it actually does an excellent job of providing that care. But there are problems with trying to move to a Medicare for all system in our country because the majority of people in America get their health care through their employers, and maybe it's a choice we wouldn't have necessarily made, except during World War II it was a job recruiter and sustainer. But in every bit of work I've done, every research study I've shown, people are not ready to give up their private health care. And it is a very hard sell to try to convince them to do so. I think what the Affordable Care Act did was to do the best job, given the different views that exist in our country, and created an exchange program that does use insurers, but so it's sort of familiar to people, but with subsidies so that it can be afforded. Now, I know that a lot of people say, well, why can't we get from where we are? We would save money if we did get to a national health insurance plan. But even in the debate over the Affordable Care Act, the so-called public option, remember that? It wasn't popular enough to get the votes that it needed. So this is a very important and personal issue to me because I think health care is the fundamental priority in people's lives. If you don't have your health, if you can't get the care you need for yourself and your families, so much else just doesn't work right for you. And that's not just for physical health. We need to do so much more on mental health. We are totally ignoring what needs to be done on mental health. And also substance abuse, treatment for addiction. Those are two huge problems. So I guess my answer is it certainly is a system that many Americans wish we could get to. There is not much chance right now, I think, that we could make that transition. That's why I support and defend the Affordable Care Act, because it provides a stopgap. It provides the opportunity for people to get the health care they need. And when you think about how all the Republicans running are saying that they want to repeal the Affordable Care Act, and there have been more than 50 votes to do that in the Congress, I don't think we want to go back and start over again. I think we want to build a plan that actually works better and controls costs more effectively off of the Affordable Care Act. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's what I think is the most possible route to try to make sure people get the health care that they need at an affordable price. Oh, I love Girl Scouts. I was a Girl Scout. Come right up here. Here you go.
I'm going to try something here. Stay with me.
But what's the alternative? Sorry, I can't hear you. Just to be clear, you said you would repeal Obamacare, but what is the alternative?
I guess I can't play this. I was going to try to watch the debate and then engage with you, but I can hear it, and I think I think you can hear it too if I can hear it, and I don't think that's allowed. I wonder if I move it into this window if you can hear it.
But I also understand that Obamacare isn't helping anyone. We're throwing more and more people into Medicaid, and fewer doctors are taking those payments. The point is Obamacare is crushing small businesses. It is not helping the families it was intended to help. So let us allow states to manage high-risk pools. Let us try the one thing in health
I
insurance we've never tried, the free market. Let us ensure
it's all
that as
about being
patients
creative
and
here at Fox
customers,
News
we have
now.
the information to shop wisely for our health care.
But I don't think I'm allowed
Thank you all very much.
to.
We're going to take a break here. Coming up, a big issue many Americans are facing. Taxes. The Republican presidential debate continues now live from Milwaukee. Stick around.
All right, while there is a break, commercial break, we'll go back to Hillary. I've got to figure out this audio thing.
3, 2, 1.
Maybe I could. I just want to be able to engage with you because I see that you guys are actually watching it in the chat room. Well, until that's over, we will go back to Hillary. It's going to take me a minute to reset my settings. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you for coming, and thank you for wearing that. Here you go.
My name is Tessa Soboleski, and my grandmother suffers with Alzheimer's disease, and I was wondering where you stand on supporting the research.
I am very much in favor of supporting research into Alzheimer's, and I'm very unhappy and sad that when those of you remember when the budget was negotiated and sequester was put in place, and it was across the board, it was indiscriminate. A lot of medical research, a lot of NIH programs were shut down because there was no money for them. And Alzheimer's took a particular hit in that because a lot of scientists tell me that we were making progress and then the money basically ran out. So I want us to invest in medical research. I want us to bring the National Institutes of Health back up to where they were and keep growing. It is one of our economic advantages. You know, our country spent, like $3-4 billion mapping the human genome, and then we did what we're the best at. We made the government investment. We created the new knowledge. Then we turned it over to the not-for-profit, and for-profit sectors in our country, and there has been $985 billion in new businesses and wealth created. So we're making a very short-sighted decision when we cut medical research, especially for a disease like Alzheimer's, because the numbers of people suffering is only going to grow. So the better we can intervene early, find better treatments, try to stop or prevent the disease, that's not only good for the families like your grandmother, that is good for our country, because the caregiving crisis that we are facing is driven by a number of conditions, but principally by Alzheimer's, because people are doing the best they can to take care of their loved ones. I've had 2 personal experiences about that right here in New Hampshire. At a town hall in Dover this summer, I called on a woman just like I call on people here, and she stood up and she said she was taking care of her spouse who has Alzheimer's and her mother who has Alzheimer's. And she said, I want to do it, but I need help. I don't have any help. And then I met a young man who is a teacher. He takes care of his mother who's 84. She has Alzheimer's. He can't afford care for her. There's not enough facilities or resources that he can find to take her, and he can't quit his job, so he takes her to work. And we think about this in the personal stories like your grandmother, but we need to start thinking about it in a much more national way, because it's going to be a huge burden on families, predominantly but not exclusively women, many of whom will drop out of the workforce, many of whom will spend down their savings, and it's going to have a very negative effect on the lives of many Americans. We got to come to grips with what we're going to do to provide some respite care and some support and other alternatives so people can take care of the ones that they love, and research for sure. Yeah, we've got lots of hands going up here. Yes, right there. Yeah, here comes a microphone right behind you. Here you go.
Hi, Secretary Clinton. I was wondering what you think about like securing the Mexican border with some of the illegal immigrants that come in. Just wondering.
Well, look, I voted numerous times when I was a senator to spend money to build a barrier to try to prevent illegal immigrants from coming in. And I do think you have to control your borders. But I think that it's also true that we need to do more to try to, number one, deal with the people who are already here, many of whom have been here for decades, because it is just never going to happen that we're going to round up and deport 11 or 12 million people. I don't care how tall the wall is or how big the door is. That is never going to happen. And I think it is an unnecessarily provocative thing to say. We need to secure our borders. I'm for it. I voted for it. I believe in it. And we also need to deal with the families, the workers who are here, who have made contributions, and their children. And we also, Mexican immigration no longer is really the issue. The Mexican economy is doing well enough. We've had no net Mexican immigration in the last several years. We now get immigrants from Central America and Latin America. And a lot of them make a very dangerous trip with smugglers and traffickers to try to get into our country. And we need to do more to try to put some resources into those countries to try to deal with some of the conditions, particularly the violence, the drug dealers and the like, that create that. And we have an example of how effective the United States can be. When my husband was president, as you remember, there was a war going on in Colombia by drug traffickers and insurgent rebels. It was such a violent war that elected officials, business leaders, academics were being kidnapped, many of them murdered, others held for ransom. And we did something called Plan Colombia, where we helped the government figure out how to secure their country from drug traffickers and rebels. And it took a number of years, but now it's a success story. So we can do more to stop the problem from where it starts. We can do more to secure our border, and we should do more to deal with the 11 or 12 million people who are here, get them out of the shadows, because we will have a better economic outcome if we do that. Because what happens now is if you're undocumented, you will work for as little as you can be paid, and that influences the labor market and takes away jobs from Americans because there's no even playing field. If we get them out of the shadows and we enforce the labor laws, we will see a much better labor market for Americans, and we will also see much more contribution into the Social Security and Medicare system, as well as the taxes. I mean, right now we know that undocumented workers pay into the Social Security system many billions of dollars, but it could be even more. So, yeah, we have to do all of that. And to talk about just one piece of it, I think, is misleading and doesn't help us get to where we can solve the problems that we face. Yes.
Thank you. Social Security you touched on. Well, this is the third year that Social Security recipients have not got a raise. And with prices going up all the time, remember, these are the seniors that built the fire stations and the police stations and served their country. And happy Veterans Day to all the veterans here. What is your plan so that next time when you're president, Social Security recipients can get a raise?
Well, first of all, I agree with you that Social Security is an absolute lifeline and safety net for so many of our seniors. And I think that we've got to, number one, defend it against any ill-advised attempts to privatize it, like we saw in George W. Bush's second term, which a number of us fought against. I've said that would be one of the biggest gifts to Wall Street you can imagine. If Social Security were privatized and everybody was given the equivalent of a 401k, just think about what that would mean. That is no way to preserve a retirement security contract with our seniors. And I mention it because before we get to the point of what we're going to do to help people more, we have to understand that there are people running for president on the Republican side who want to change it dramatically. And if there's a Republican president and a Republican Congress, I think that is a very real threat. And with your help, I am. But let me say this: that I think that there are two issues here that I want to address. One, the absence of a COLA, a cost of living, increase, and the fact that Social Security is not a sufficient form of income support for the poorest, most vulnerable people on Social Security. So I think we do have to address the broader issue, but I am particularly concerned about widows and single women and caregivers, to go back to the Alzheimer question, who are not getting enough money right now to get by. So I think we have to look at this, and I am open to how we can do it best and where the money would come from so that we provide the kind of continuing financial support that people on Social Security deserve to have. And the COLA is a part of it, and the lack of monthly support for a significant number of people who are on it is also an issue. Those are the two issues that I want to address. Oh, my goodness. Oh, my goodness. Yeah, the lady that lady right there.
Awesome. So I actually have a list of questions, but I've decided I have the most important one to me. So you've talked about substance abuse, and you've talked about all of the medical stuff. But personally, there's a large issue in our country with heroin, and nobody's actually talking about it. And so I would like for somebody to finally step up and talk about it, especially it's hitting this age range of 24 to about 35, and way too often.
You're right. And I've had 2 town halls here in New Hampshire, one in Laconia, one at Keene State a few weeks ago, where the only subject was addiction, substance abuse. Actually, I think it was Laconia, and where was the other one? Where? Yeah, Manchester, I think. It was upstate, yeah. And I totally agree with you. We have a heroin epidemic, and it is predominantly affecting young people. And it is, in large measure, a result of the opioid prescription drug epidemic. Too many opioid prescriptions for too long have been handed out too freely. And we have to recognize that opioids are addictive, and then they are expensive. So heroin has come in as the substitute. And so that's one of the reasons why people are getting addicted to heroin. And oftentimes they don't even know what's in the heroin. There's a drug called fentanyl, which is the killer in a lot of the heroin, the way it's mixed now. And so here, I've come out, go to my website, hillaryclinton.com. I've come out with a comprehensive anti-addiction program, more treatment, more recovery programs, working with physicians so that they are more sensitive to their prescribing of opioids, working with law enforcement to try to intervene, equipping law enforcement with the antidote to a heroin overdose, Narcan, so that they can save lives. And hundreds of lives have been saved here in New Hampshire in the last few years, where with the police departments who are using it. So I just, Marty Walsh and I did a town hall in Boston because he was very open about being a recovering alcoholic, and we had, along with the Attorney General, we had a town hall in Boston about these issues. I have to say, when I started my campaign, I did not think I would be talking so much about addiction or rolling out a whole plan about it. And then people started talking to me. The first time I came to New Hampshire, I went to Keene, and I met with a small group in a little cafe, and a retired doctor said, well, I want to hear about all your other plans, but first I want to ask you, what are you going to do about the heroin epidemic? And I didn't even know there was a heroin epidemic here in New Hampshire. The governor of Vermont, Governor Shumlin, came over and did a town hall with me. He supports me, but he's also been trying to deal with the heroin epidemic in Vermont. This is a broad and growing crisis, and we've got to recognize it for what it is, and then we've got to figure out how to prevent it. And we've got to do more education of young people who have to understand that, you know, this is deadly. And there are too many examples of it for people to take a chance. So this is, at every one of my town halls, somebody will say to me, thank you for talking about it. I lost my son. I lost my daughter. And I've met grandmothers in New Hampshire that are taking care of their grandchildren because their children overdosed or their children are lost to drug addiction and unable to be responsible parents. So this is a problem, and I hope that people will really ask in your own communities what you can do to try to deal with it, to prevent it, and to better treat it. So, oh my goodness. Yeah, that young woman right there. Yeah. Here comes the microphone.
Marina, which Republican candidate are you hoping will run against you, and why?
Well, in keeping with the very fair points made by the woman in the hat, I'm not going to get involved in their primary. I am really interested in how it's going, and I want to see what Republicans decide. But I want to say that any Republicans who think we can do better, please consider voting for me. I am very hopeful that we can get more bipartisanship into the election, so I'll have to wait and see. Okay. Yeah, this gentleman right there. Yes. Here comes the microphone.
Good evening, Hillary.
Good evening.
You've addressed most of the issues tonight here that most of us here are concerned about. So I'd just like to make a comment, and my comment is that I commend you for running for this office, given the energy, the time you have to put into it, and also the scrutiny you have to face, such as Benghazi recently. And listening to you tonight, I know who I'm going to vote for president because you have the strength to bring our country forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. This young man in the blue and white shirt right there. Yeah. I'm always happy to see young people at these events. I'm really glad they came. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say that I've noticed that many companies in America are making, like drug companies are making legal substances that are very lethal. And I've noticed that some of them are using our country as a base so they can move into other countries and start selling them there. And there's some proven information that they're actually lying to those countries, saying that they're good and they can be good for you when they're really harmful.
Let me just quickly say, the biggest example of that are not the drug companies, but the tobacco companies. You know, the tobacco companies have been very aggressive in trying to sell their products overseas and to make alliances with governments of countries where they could get into the market. On some of the drugs that you're talking about, it's not so much the drugs that go through our process, the FDA process. It's drugs that might be not subjected to that and yet exported from our country that I think you're concerned about. They haven't been proven to be safe or effective or suitable for certain purposes, and yet they are exported as though they were. And that is a problem. So it's something that we have to address. And it goes with my overall plan to try to reform the way drugs are sold in America. And the other thing that happens we have no standards for supplements at all. And a lot of people are taking huge amounts of supplements, and they are looking at the ads or they're reading the label, and it says you'll get energy or you'll get to sleep better or whatever, and there is no real testing for it. And then when it comes to marijuana, a lot of states have passed medical marijuana, and I support that. But I also support research so that we know more about what works and what doesn't work. And we're not doing it because marijuana is listed as a Schedule I drug, which means you cannot even do research. So I want it to be listed as a Schedule II drug so we can start finding out what does it really do and how does it help people and how do we get some standard of quality and purity. Because there are so many different forms of marijuana that are grown in all kinds of places. And if you are suffering from nausea with chemotherapy, what's the best kind to use? Nobody can tell you because we've never done the research. So I think your question is a larger question about how we get more information and more research, and we try to give that information to people, particularly doctors, so better decisions can be made both here and around the world. So thank you. Yeah, right there. Yes, that lady right there.
Secretary Clinton, I have a question. I'm a school nutrition director, so I'm going to change gears a little bit. And I know that you support, I'm sure that you support Michelle Obama's initiatives for school nutrition programs. My question to you is, do you also support some flexibility in those guidelines? And what would you do for a school district such as the one you're in tonight that have low free and reduced, not high free and reduced? I heard you recently say that 50% of the students in the United States are on free and reduced lunch, which they are. But unfortunately, a lot of our programs are judged on our bottom line and not necessarily on our nutritional integrity, as they are in these districts where they have low free and reduced. How would the federal government help us to meet the standards and to help our bottom lines? We're asking for 25 cents per meal, but we seem to be having some difficulty in Congress trying to get that passed.
You know, I really appreciate, number one, what you do, being a school nutrition director, and number two, asking the question. I think we now know what a critical role nutrition plays in health. I'm not so sure we did. I mean, when I think back about, my mother was a wonderful mother, and she was a good cook, and we ate a lot of bad stuff. Not tasting bad, but, you know, a lot of hot dogs and, you know, things like that, which we liked. And so I think we have to pay much more attention to nutrition, particularly for children, because that lays the foundation for health. And I do support what Michelle Obama tried to do, but I also support some flexibility because we have to figure out how to make it work. And so from my perspective, this should be a really high priority. You know, we've gotten to the point where we kind of forget that schools do a lot besides just teach subjects. Schools are communities. You know, it takes a village to raise a child. This is part of the village, and it's part of the way that, you know, kids learn about all kinds of things, teamwork and empathy and nutrition. And I think we've got to do a better job, and we've got to figure out a way to make it sustainable so that it can be affordable to you, your bottom line, and to kids. And I'm a huge believer that nutrition makes a big difference. So I will try to be a good partner with you in trying to figure out how best to do that. So, yes, I know we've got people up there. Can you give a shout out? Okay.
Hi. I just wanted to, if you don't mind, another health care question. I've always been a big supporter of the Affordable Care Act. I was actually fortunate when my son was going to college. It kicked in right at the right time, so he was able to stay on my health care. What we're finding now, in 2018, I believe the Cadillac tax is going to kick in onto these high cost plans. And as a teacher, and this has become a big issue around the state, teachers, firefighters, police have these plans that by no actions on our own, we're going to be assessed at 40% of the overage on these Cadillac plans. And this cost is going to hit us. It's not going to hit our employers. It's not hitting our insurance companies. So is that something that would be on the table in your administration to fix that type of tax?
Yes, and I've said that. I think that we, you know, the idea behind it, the Cadillac tax is supposed to help support some of the broad needs under the Affordable Care Act. And the idea was, well, if employers were not paying as big a share as they do for the so-called Cadillac plans, then they would put more money into wages. But there's no indication that that would happen. And particularly for federal or state employees, it seems unlikely. So I've said we need to find another way to provide that funding for the Affordable Care Act, and I'm against having the Cadillac tax kick in 2018. Oh, oh my goodness. My goodness, I love the fact that there's still so many hands up, although my goodness, aren't you people getting hungry? Here you go.
I have two quick questions for you. One, because I'm a millennial, can I get a selfie with you first? Thank you very much. Second, I think one of the biggest issues with your campaign is trust. So I'm curious what you're going to do to show your values to the American people and win back the trust of the public.
Well, you know, I've had the same values throughout my entire life, and I have fought for the same things ever since I've been in public life. I realize I have been, you know, in the spotlight, and often a lot of questions and attacks coming at me. That happened when I ran for the Senate, and then I was elected, and the people of New York elected me again with an even bigger percentage. It happened after I ran against Senator Obama and lost, and then he turned around and asked me to be his Secretary of State. So I think people who work for me, people who I represented, people who I know, they trust me because they know I will get up every day trying to do what I said I would do, and that I will fight for you, and I will work for you, and And you know, I also believe so strongly that even though my name is on the ballot because of my signing those papers this afternoon, really this is about everybody here, and particularly young people like yourself. I often am struck by how much more this election means in terms of your future than it does for a lot of us who are here. And I just want to be sure that as your president, I'm going to keep faith with you so that you can trust this country to be there for you as you try to make your own future. And that's my pledge to you. That's what I will do for you. And I hope that you will support me in the primary. Thank you all very much. What's your question?
All right, and let's go back to Steve. Ooh, no, we don't need to hear Katy Perry. No, we don't. Gonna take you up to the top of Steve Kraft's feed. Let me change my lower third here. Okay. New York City right now looks amazing. Look at that. I love New York. I wish I lived there. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do now, I think what I'm going to try to do is maybe Sorry, I was just talking to John Hook that sent me to a really good article. I'm going to try to watch this with you. I can't stream it on my computer because you can hear it. And then it's almost as if I am trying to stream it for you because I'm not allowed to. But if I stream it on my phone, perhaps it will let me, perhaps that way I'm not really cheating and it's just me engaging with you. Do you understand what I'm saying?
They're actually able to guide some of the other things that we're.
And so then we can talk about it together. Does that make sense?
And what we have to recognize is that
look, I'm watching it on my phone. I'm not streaming it illegally anywhere.
This is going to be his base, and we have to oppose him there.
Ben Carson currently talking about Putin, it looks like. Putin is not the problem, says Jeff. No, ISIS is.
So far is very ineffective, but we can't give up ground right there. But we have to look at this on a much more global scale. We're talking about global jihadists, and their desire is to destroy us and to destroy our way of life. So we have to be saying, how do we make them look like losers? Because that's the way that they're able to gather a lot of influence. And I think in order to make them look like losers, we have to destroy their caliphate.
Tess says Putin is a putz. I like Putin. He's sassy. I like him in regards to ISIS. He is a leader when it comes to not putting up with terrorism.
I believe fairly easily. I've learned from talking to several generals, and then you move on from there. But you have to continue to face them because our goal is not to contain them, but to destroy them.
Carson says our goal is not to contain them, but to destroy them before they destroy us. I believe he's talking about
To take a look at some of the major issues
ISIS.
we're talking about and tackling in this debate tonight. This word cloud shows what people are focusing on the most.
They're showing a word cloud associated with Facebook questions, Homeland Security, Wall Street, size of government, taxes, jobs, Syria. Jeb Bush just said that Islamic terrorism is America's biggest threat today.
That's the lesson of history. And sadly, this president does not believe in American leadership. He does not believe in
Bush, I forgot about that guy, says Mucky.
that gains energy each and every day to recruit Americans in our own country. And the threat to the homeland relates to the fact that we've not dealt
I like that Steve Kraft puts an exclamation point after Jeb's name.
in Syria.
Jeb Bush says we should have a no-fly zone in Syria.
Safe zones. If you want to deal with the 4 million refugees that are leaving Syria because of the devastation there, then we ought to create safe zones for them to stay in the region rather than go to Europe. And that requires American leadership. Without American leadership, every other
Jeb says we lack American leadership and that we should create a safe zone for Syria closer to them, which is something Huckabee said similar earlier.
Russia. It wasn't that long ago. Russia had no influence in the region at all. And so
Russia had no reason, I don't even know what he just said. No influence in the region. He said no, Russia had no influence in the region whatsoever.
have a huge impact on the economy of this country if we don't deal with this.
Bush is right, says Sid.
Mr. Trump, in a 2012 debate, President Obama mocked Mitt Romney's assertion that Russia was the top geopolitical challenge facing the United States, saying he was a Cold War dinosaur. Now, Russia has invaded Ukraine and has put troops in Syria. You have said
Mucky says, I think Bush should be the first boot on the ground.
So what does President Trump do in response to Russia's aggression?
Well, first of all, it's not only Russia. We have problems with North Korea where they actually have.
Trump says we have problems with North Korea that actually have nuclear weapons, and we have problems with Iran, one of the worst deals ever made, one of the worst contracts ever signed, ever in anything, a disgrace.
We have somebody over there, a madman who already has nuclear weapons. We don't talk about that. That's a problem. China is a problem. Both
China is a problem both economically and what they're doing.
they are becoming a very, very major force. So we have more than just Russia. But as far as the Ukraine
Trump says we have more than just Russia.
As far as Syria, I like if Putin wants to go in, and I got to know him very well because we were both on 60 Minutes. We were stablemates very well that night. But you know that. But if Putin wants to go and knock the hell out of ISIS, I am all for it 100%.
Yeah, Trump on Russia, if Putin wants to knock the hell out of ISIS, I am all for it. That's what he just said.
They blew up a Russian airplane.
There's Jeb.
He cannot be in love with these people. He's going in, and we can go in, and everybody should go in. As far as the Ukraine is concerned, we have a group of people and a group of countries, including Germany, tremendous economic behemoth. Why are we always doing the work? I'm all for protecting Ukraine.
Trump is saying, why are we always doing the work? Why aren't other people contributing?
They say, keep going, you dummies, keep going, protect.
Oh, he said dummies. He got the bell.
We can't continue to be the policemen of the world. We owe 19 trillion.
We can't continue to be the policemen of the world. We have a country that's going to hell, says Donald Trump.
Our schools, our airports, and we have to start investing money in our country.
Donald is wrong on this. He is absolutely wrong on this.
Oh, here goes Jeb.
Be the world's policeman, but we sure as heck better be the world's leader. There's a huge difference where without us leading, voids are filled. And the idea that it's a good idea for Putin to be in Syria, let ISIS take out Assad, and then Putin will take out ISIS. I mean, that's like a board game. That's like playing Monopoly or something. That's not how the real world works.
Oh, Donald Trump. Why does Carly keep interrupting everybody? Yes. It's true. He should be able to respond.
Who do we want to be our commander-in-chief? Do you want a commander-in-chief who says something that we never did throughout the entire Cold War? To discontinue having conversations with the Russians. I'm not happy about them flying over there, but I'm not naive enough to say, well, Iraq has them flying over their airspace. We're just going to announce that we're
Kasich shakes his head. He can't get a word in edgewise, says Steve Kraft.
something you might hear in junior high, but it's scary. But if I'm not going to respond in a no-fly zone strategy, what would yours be? The first thing I would do is I wouldn't arm our enemies. I wouldn't arm ISIS. Most of the people who want the no-fly
Rand Paul
zone
saying he would not
also
arm
favored
ISIS.
arming the allies of Al-Qaeda, which became ISIS. That was the dumbest, most foolhardy notion, and most of the people up here supported it. They wanted to arm the allies of Al-Qaeda. Some of them still do. That's how ISIS grew. We pushed back Assad, and ISIS was allowed to grow in the vacuum. So the first thing you do is don't arm your enemies.
Don't arm your enemies, says Rand Paul.
First is, I've never met Vladimir Putin, but I know enough about him to know he's a gangster. He's basically an organized crime figure that runs a country, controls a $2 trillion economy, and is using it to build up his military.
Marco Rubio says Putin's a gangster.
It's a disaster. He understands only geopolitical strength. And every time he has acted anywhere in the world, whether it's in Ukraine or Georgia before that, or now in the Middle East, is because he is trusting a weakness. His calculation in the Middle East is that he's seen what this president has done, which is nothing. The president has no strategy. Our allies in the region do not trust us. For goodness sake, there's only one pro-American free enterprise democracy in the Middle East. It's the state of Israel. And we have a president that treats the prime minister of Israel with less respect than what he gives the Ayatollah in Iran.
Marco Rubio is saying we have a president that gives Iran more respect than How am I spacing? There's so much talking going on right now and beeping. ISIS is now in Libya. They are a significant presence in Libya and Afghanistan, and soon they'll be in Turkey. They'll try Jordan, says Marco Rubio. They are coming for us, says Rubio. They recruit Americans using social media. Oh, Israel. They hate us because our girls go to school and women drive in the United States. Either they win and we win. We better take this threat seriously. It is not going away on its own. That's what Marco Rubio is saying.
Governor Kasich, I want to ask you about China. In particular, hundreds of American companies have been subjected to cyber attacks from the Chinese military. Yet state-backed Chinese companies are growing their presence in the United States. Chinese investments in the U.S., which were nearly non-existent a few years ago, are now over $50 billion. And as my newspaper recently reported, Chinese companies are planning to bid for one of the largest hotel chains in the United States. What would be the largest ever Chinese takeover of a U.S. company? Would you stop them?
Let me tell you this, Mr. Baker. In terms of the cyber attacks, we have the capability to not only have a defensive posture, but also to make it clear to people that if you attack us with cyber attacks, we will destroy the
Rubio says Putin is a gangster who only understands strength. So the U.S. has to push back. He delivers smooth, soundbite-rich answers, says Steve Kraft. Good observation. So good that I'm ignoring John Kasich, who's talking right now. He's not as exciting, quite frankly.
If the Russians move, we move. In Syria, yes, a no-fly zone in the north on the Turkish border, a no-fly zone on the south on the Jordanian border. Anybody flies
Joker in the chat room says I'd rather have Putin than Obama.
second time, they will not fly out. And it also becomes a sanctuary for the people to be, and it also sends many messages in the Middle East that we're still involved. Saudi Arabia cut off the funding for the radical clerics, the ones that preach against us, but they're fundamentally our friends. Jordan, we want the king to reign for 1,000 years. Egypt, they've been our ally and a moderating force in the Middle East throughout their history.
Kasich is rambling again, says Fanny.
The Gulf states of Bahrain, the Cleveland Clinic is opening an operation. Clearly, we see the same with them. And in Israel, we have no better ally in the world, and no more criticizing them in public. We should support them. And finally, China. China doesn't own the South China Sea. And I give the president some credit for being able to move a naval force in there to let the Chinese know that we're not going to put up with it anymore. And in the trade agreement, the TPP,
We have no love for Putin, but expecting them to allow terrorists to collect on their borders is crazy. Russia has every right to help their allies, says Mucky.
to create not only economic alliances, but also potentially strategic alliances against the Chinese. They're not
Kasich says some smart things, says Tess. I just don't care, though, because he won't be president. It's too late. His time is done.
economics. When the fall comes and we run against Hillary, which would be a disaster if she got elected. I have two 16-year-old girls, and I want this country to be strong.
Kasich says, I have two 16-year-old girls, and I want this country to be strong. If Hillary is elected, it will be a disaster.
Make sure that our economic programs and our military programs are solid. I served in Washington as the chairman of the budget committee. We got the budget balanced.
Ding, ding.
And in Ohio as the CEO. And guess what? We got to have a CEO mentality and a way to beat Hillary Clinton and the Democrats in the fall. And our ideas have to add up. They have to be solid. And people have to know we have the confidence to lead America. And as president, I will lead this country as I have before in Washington and in Ohio, and will return both on domestic and international affairs. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak this time, Jerry.
John Kasich, I appreciate the opportunity to speak this time.
Look at the time. You are watching Fox Business. We'll take a break. Stick around. I think it gets interesting after this.
Let's see what some of the candidates are tweeting. Donald Trump is currently not active. He did post a sweet photo of him and his granddaughter on his Facebook page earlier. I love this, yeah. Ben Carson mocks new media on Facebook and Twitter. After a week-long war of words with the national media, Republican presidential candidate Ben Carson took to social media to mock the news organizations that the GOP frontrunner has accused of unfair scrutiny of his past statements and autobiography. The retired neurosurgeon fired back Tuesday night with a slew of satirical graphics posted on his Facebook page and Twitter account, poking fun at major media outlets for their coverage of him. I was just showing this to John Hook earlier. The graphics, featuring fake satirical news headlines in the style of breaking news alerts, take direct aim at Politico, the Huffington Post, CNN, and MSNBC, among others, implying that their coverage of him has been biased. And later, he even launched a meme generator on his campaign website that invited supporters to make their own. Carson has faced heightened scrutiny in the past 2 weeks for numerous inaccuracies and stories about his past, including in his memoir Gifted Hands about meeting General William Westmoreland in 1969 and being offered a full scholarship to West Point. His campaign later acknowledged that he never applied to the military academy and may have gotten other elements of his timeline wrong. On Monday, Republican National Committee Chair Reince Priebus called the media attention a crazy obsession. I want to create one. BenCarson.com/meme. I'm gonna do it. First name, Kinsey. Oh, the debate's back on. Last name, Timberlake.
Let's get straight back to the questions. Governor Bush. Governor, Hillary Clinton recently said that if we had another financial crisis like the one in 2008, she wouldn't bail out the banks. Would you?
We shouldn't have another financial crisis. What we ought to do is raise the capital requirements requirements so banks aren't too big to fail. Dodd-Frank has actually done the opposite, totally the opposite, where banks now have higher concentration of risk and assets, and the capital requirements aren't high enough. If we were serious about it, we would raise the capital requirements and lessen the load on the community banks and other financial institutions. This vast overreach has created a huge problem for our country. Hillary Clinton wants to double down on that. I was in Washington, Iowa, about 3 months ago, talking about how bad Washington, D.C. is. Just get the kind of the... Anyway, we had... and I talked to a banker there.
Ratfinder not a fan of Jeb. Ratfinder a very strong conservative, we've learned throughout our interactions with him in the chat room.
$1,000 in a 2-year period. The net effect of that is, and they had not one loan that went bad during the financial crisis. They knew their borrowers. They gave back to the community. Well, that's what's happening because of Dodd-Frank. That's my worry. My worry is that the
Jeb's suit is very handsome. I need to see Ted Cruz's suit. His suit was questionable during the CNBC debate.
She wants to create even more so. She is a captive of the left of her party to the point now where she was for the trade agreement and the Pacific Agreement. Now she's against it. She was hinted she was for the XL pipeline. Now she's opposed to it. All the things that would create sustained economic growth, she's now doubling down against it.
Governor, can I just quickly say, you can't seriously guarantee that there won't be another financial crisis, can you?
If you could, if you were serious about it.
There'll never be another financial crisis.
No, I can't say that, but I can say if you created higher capital requirements, that's the solution to this. Not having concentration of assets, the bigger banks now have more and more control over the financial assets of this country, and that is the wrong approach to take.
Dr. Carson, if I may, just on that point, despite measures taken, as the governor says, since the crisis to make the financial system safer...
It must be frustrating for Jeb, says Steve Kraft. He has a clear mastery of issues but doesn't seem to break through the clutter.
The very largest bank have increased by nearly 40% to over $2.6 trillion. Do you think JP Morgan and the other big banks should be broken up?
Well, I think we should have policies
you can do
that
it.
don't allow them to just enlarge themselves at the expense of smaller entities. And certainly some of the policies, some of the monetary and Fed policies that we're using makes it very easy for them. Makes it very easy for the big corporations, quite frankly, at these very low interest rates to buy back their stock and to drive the price of that up artificially. Those are the kinds of things that led to the problem in the first place. And I think this all really gets back to this whole regulation issue, which is creating a very abnormal situation. This country
A lot of hostility in the chat room towards Jeb. Exclamation point.
It was the #1 economic power in the world. And the reason was because we had an atmosphere that encouraged...
So I did the Ben Carson meme during the commercial break, and my meme suggestion was that he formed the band Hanson, which is funny because it's 3 brothers from Oklahoma. I hope they use my meme.
If we can get that out, it makes a big difference. And even for the average person, every single regulation costs money, and it's shifted to the individual. So, and it hurts the poor and the middle class much more than it does the rich. They go into the store and they buy a bar of soap. It costs 10 cents more. They notice it. And the middle class, when they come to the cash register, they have a whole cart full of things that cost 5, 10, or 15 cents more. They notice it. It is hurting the poor. Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton won't tell you that that's the thing that's really hurting the middle class and the poor. They'll say it's the rich. Take their money, but that won't help. You can take all of the rich's money and it won't make a dent in the problem that we're having. We have to come back to
Ben Carson is saying we need to come back to the fundamental principles that made America great, but taking money from the rich is not going to better the poor.
Favor breaking up the big banks? You think that they're big enough, they're okay as they are?
I would have policies that wouldn't allow that to occur. I don't want to go in and tear anybody down. I mean, that doesn't help us. But what does help us is to stop tinkering around the edges and fix the actual problems that exist that are creating the problem.
Can I just add one thing? He's right on point there. You know why these banks are so big? The government made them big. The government made them big by adding thousands and thousands of pages of regulations. So the big banks, they have an army of lawyers, they have an army of compliance officers. They can deal with all
Rat
these
Finder
things. The small
calls
banks, like
Marco
Governor Bush
Rubio
is
in the
saying, they
chat
can't
room
deal with all
Marco
these regulations. They can't deal with
Stugio.
all. They
What
cannot
does that
hire
even
the
mean?
fanciest law firm in Washington or the best lobbying firm to deal with all these regulations. And so the result is the big banks get bigger, the small banks struggle to lend or even exist.
Talking about big banks right now, this is an aspect of the debate I don't really comprehend, so I'm not going to chime in. Tessa's Rubio and Carson are winning in her book.
We are so big, we are so important that if we get in trouble, the government has to bail us out. This is an outrage. We need to repeal Dodd-Frank as soon as possible.
Let me also say, Jerry,
Marco Rubio says we need to repeal Dodd-Frank as soon as possible.
What Jeff is talking about with the big banks is to force them to reserve their capital of people who invested and they hold their capital so that if the bank goes down, the people
Oh,
who
like
are
the
invested
Three
in the bank are the
Stooges.
ones that pay. That's what he's trying to say. Secondly, I'll tell you about Wall Street. There's too much greed. And the fact is, a free enterprise system is a system that's
This, where is Ted Cruz? I haven't seen him once.
Catholic theologian says that a free enterprise system that is not underlaid with values, and we should all think about the way we conduct our lives.
This debate seems kind of boring. Am I wrong?
But there have to be some values that underlay it, and they need a good ethics lesson on Wall Street on a regular basis to keep them in check so we, the people, do not lose. Thank you, Gerard. Can I
Ooh, they're all just fighting for that mic, huh?
Senator Cruz, on that theme,
Cruz!
Cruz! For the last month alone, nearly 1 million people, nearly 1 million, have been concerned about raiding in Wall Street, apparently believing that some have not been punished enough. So as an accomplished litigator yourself and a former Solicitor General, would you go after the very people who believe and fear
King Bob.
that Wall Street has ignored? In other words, the crooks.
Tess said, I thought Cruz would attempt to stand out again. He has been kind of MIA.
Absolutely, yes. You know, I've spent much of
Ooh,
my
much
adult
nicer
life
suit
enforcing the law and
situation.
defending the Constitution, and the problem that underlies all of
Beautiful
this
graphics on
is
Fox
the
Business.
cronyism and corruption of Washington. You know, the
Ted is
opening
saying,
question Jerry
talking about
asked,
corruption in Washington. Would you bail out the big banks? Ted Cruz is saying he would not bail out the big banks. Absolutely not.
And what we have right now is we have Washington as government gets bigger and bigger. You know, the biggest lie in all of
Ted
Washington.
Cruz is saying as Washington gets bigger and bigger,
The truth is the rich do great with big government. They get
the rich does great with big government. The banks get bigger and bigger. Community banks are going out of business. Consequence is small business can't get business loans. And it's a fundamental corruption. Oh, he's saying that 6 of the most corrupt counties are around Washington, D.C.
A woman named Sabina Loving testified at a hearing that I chaired in the Senate. Sabina Loving is an African-American single mom who started a tax preparation business in the south side of Chicago.
He's giving an example.
She wanted to have her own business. She started a business. But then the
Where are you, Steve? I need you to contribute, Steve. Wait, I should talk like this so it looks like I'm looking at him. Steve, where are you? I need you to contribute. Oh, Cruz wasn't done with the story, and we haven't heard from them at all tonight. Don't beep at him again. Ooh, those beeps would make me so nervous. I would give up. A lot of applause for Cruz.
Senator, I really want to be clear here. Are you saying, sir, that the Bank of America were on the brink?
Neil Cavuto, if Bank of America were on the brink, would you let them fail? Cruz said yes. Cruz is saying there's a rule for the Federal Reserve, what they're doing now. Hi, Ale.
We had the financial crashes throughout the 2000s. We had loose money. We had an asset bubble that drove up the price of real estate, drove up the price of commodities, and then in the third quarter of 2008, the Fed tightened the money and crashed those asset prices, which caused a cascading collapse. That's why I am supporting getting back to rules-based monetary system, not with a bunch of philosopher kings deciding, but tied ideally.
So I understand that. I just want to be clear, if you don't mind, that millions of depositors would be on the line.
Millions of depositors would be on the line, says Cavuto.
For whatever the reason, that you would let it go. You would let a Bank of America go.
Cruz looks frustrated. He would not bail them out, he says.
Adjusting monetary policy according to whims and getting it wrong over and over again and causing booms and busts. What the Fed should be doing is, number one, keeping our money tied to a stable level of gold, and number two, serving as a lender of last resort. That's what central banks do. So if you have a run on a bank, the Fed can serve as a lender of
Ratfinder says Cruz is one smart dude. We finally found somebody other than Trump that Ratfinder is a fan of.
That's how central banks have worked, and I'll point out, look, we had a gold standard under Bretton Woods. We had it for about 170 years of our nation's history.
Amazing no one asked about Black Lives Matter, says Fanny. Thank goodness, says Fanny.
We need to get back to sound money, which helps in particular working men and women. What Washington does, the people who are doing well in the Obama economy are those with power and influence in the Obama government. The people who are
Beep, beep.
men and women, that's who we need to fight for.
Neil, that's the difference of being an executive. And let me just explain.
Uh-oh.
When a bank is ready to go under and depositors are getting
Kasich is smarter than everyone. That's what he's saying.
You just don't say we believe in philosophical concerns. You know what an executive has to decide? When there's a water crisis, how do we get water to the city? When there's a school shooting, how do you get there and help heal a community? When there are financial crises or a crisis with Ebola, you got to go there and try to fix it.
Oh, here's Steve Kraft. Thanks, Steve.
Doesn't work when you
Hi.
run something. And I got to tell you, on-the-job training for President of the United States doesn't work. We've done it for 8 years, and almost 8 years now, it does not work. We need an executive who's been tried.
John Kasich is saying they need an executive that's been tried and tested to be the...
I don't like what Fair is doing, but I'll tell you what worries me more than anything.
Say, as a chief executive who's had to make tough calls to save
Insert
jobs
Carly here.
and to grow jobs, I think what's
Carly, you were
interesting about
fired.
Frank, is it's a great example of how socialism starts. Socialism starts when government creates a problem and then government steps in to solve the problem. Government created the problem. Government created the problem of a real estate boom. How did we create it? Under Republicans and Democrats alike, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, everybody gathered together, Republicans and Democrats, and said,
Carly looks
homeownership is part
beautiful.
of the American dream. Let's create a bubble. And then government stepped in, by the way, under President George W. Bush. Banks were encouraged, really, to buy other banks, to take money. And now what do we have with Dodd-Frank? The classic of crony capitalism. The big have gotten bigger. 1,590 community banks have gone out of business. And on top of all that, we've created something called the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, a vast bureaucracy with no congressional oversight that's digging through hundreds of millions of your credit records to detect fraud. This is how socialism starts, ladies and gentlemen. We must take our government back.
Carly Fiorina ends on a high note. We must take our government back, she says. Bill in the chat room says this debate reminds me of what debates are supposed to be. Yeah, that's a pretty good debate. It's a pretty adult, grown-up debate. Fiorina says government created real estate mess, then huge bailout. How socialism starts, says Steve Kraft on Twitter. Who is Rich, asks Fanny. Rich is my boyfriend, Fanny. Kobe Rich. Fiorina had a pretty solid point, though, says King Bob. I need more Rubio, says Tess, exclamation point. Fiorina is getting some applause, says Tess. Trump barely speaks at debate. Trump wins debate, says John Doe. I'd like to hear more Rubio and Cruz, says Rachel.
You're going to enjoy our Bisbee ghost story. 5.5 minute epic. You're going to enjoy it.
5.5 on a ghost?
Yeah.
The weekend, 2 weeks after Halloween?
Talk to Tillman.
Not enough Carson tonight, says Ale. I did enjoy his words regarding the corporate bully banks. I kind of like to hear more from Trump, says Rachel. He shut down Jeb earlier, which was fantastic. I'd like to see that. I didn't get to see all of it. During some of it, we were watching Hillary, and I had Hillary in my ear.
So he'll probably teach to that, because he's already going to be out of the spin room for his life's out of 9. So whatever sound he gets, we'll already have it come. Then we'll come from that. Now, so if you want to either butt those bikes together or do like a softball going into him, kind of have to let him decide.
Steven says, Kinsey, Facebook has a page called GOP Debate, and it has a graph of how people feel about the debate, and it's that 39 people are impressed. Interesting. Tess says, first half, Carson made some great points, been quiet recently. He needs to insert himself in the conversation. Trump defends Rand for the win, says John Doe. Hello from Australia, says Eamon.
For the Democratic nomination. If she is indeed the nominee, you will be facing a candidate with an impressive resume. She was the First Lady of the United States.
People are laughing because the moderator referred to Hillary Clinton as having an impressive resume.
Secretary of State under Barack Obama. She has arguably more experience, certainly more time in government.
Trump's been absent, says Tess. They've barely asked him anything, says Joker.
American people trust you to lead this country, even though she has been so much closer to the office.
Well, that's a great question. And let me begin by answering it.
Oh, I love Marco Rubio. He's giggling.
This election is about the future, about what kind of country this nation is going to be in the 21st
Rubio's
century.
such a good
This election is
speaker.
actually a generational choice, a choice about what kind of nation we will be in the 21st century. For over 2.5 centuries, America's been a special country, the one place on earth where anyone from anywhere can achieve anything, a nation that's been a force for good on this planet. But now, a growing number of Americans feel out of place in their own country. We have a society that stigmatizes those that hold cultural values that are traditional. We have a society where people, millions of people, are living paycheck to paycheck. They're working as hard as they ever have, but they're living paycheck to paycheck because the economy has changed underneath their feet. We have young Americans who owe thousands of dollars in student loans for a degree that doesn't lead to a job. For the first time in 35 years, we have more businesses dying than starting. And around the world, every day brings news of a new humiliation for America. Many, the direct consequence of decisions made when Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State. And so here's the truth. This election is about the future. And the Democratic Party and the political left has no ideas about the future. All their ideas are the same tired ideas of the past. More government, more spending. For every issue before America, their answer is a new tax on someone and a new government program. This nation is going to turn the page. And that's what this election should be about. And as I said at the first, if I am our nominee, they will be the party of the past. We will be the party of the 21st century.
And Maria, I will note, she's got a lot of experience, but her policies have proven disastrous. If you look at foreign policy, every region on the world has gotten worse. Under her leadership, we abandoned the nation of Israel. Under her leadership, radical Islamic terrorism has been under the rise. Under her leadership and Obama's leadership, Iran is getting $100 billion and on the verge of getting a nuclear weapon. Everything she's put her hand to is touched. And when we talk about the cronyism of Washington,
This is Cruz jumping in regards to something that he wasn't asked about.
And I'll give you an example of that, which is the congressional exemption from Obamacare, which is fundamentally wrong. And I'll tell you this, if I'm elected president, I will veto any statute that exempts members of Congress. The law should apply evenly to every American.
All right, I think it's fair to say you're not fans of Hillary Clinton's resumes. All right, Mr. Trump.
We are not.
I had a feeling. As perhaps the most successful capitalist on this stage tonight, you've acknowledged that some give capitalism a bad name. You've been particularly critical of businesses that find all sorts of ways of paying their taxes by keeping money abroad. But your own plan includes an incentive to bring that more than $2 trillion home. Isn't that like a one-time bounty?
No.
Some of the guys you've all but called pirates, so they still keep the loot and pay only a small price to bring it back.
Well, what's happening right now, Neil, is something that has not been a subject of conversation by politicians, as primarily the only politician, I guess, other than
Hey, it's
Carl
9
on the
o'clock.
stage.
So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up. It's 9:03. Thanks so much for spending your evening with me. Enjoy the debate. You can watch it live, streaming live at foxbusiness.com. And you can continue to chat in this chat room because although the video is going away, the chat room will stay open. So thank you so much for spending your evening with me. I'll see you tomorrow or Fox 10 News Now, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and thanks so much for your time this evening. Oh, one more tweet from Kraft.
They can't get the money in. It's probably $2.5 trillion, but I think it's much more than that. All of that money could come right in and be used